Hello friends, welcome to Master Power Query, your guide to master one of the most powerful tool in Power BI. Power Query is the heart of data transformation in Power BI. Whether you are cleansing messy datasets, combining multiple sources, or shaping your data for analysis, Power Query makes it seamless, efficient, and repeatable. But here is the exciting part. What you learn here goes far beyond Power BI Desktop. In Microsoft Fabric, Dataflow Gen 2 takes Power Query to the next level. You can use the same techniques to process the data at scale and save it directly to the modern destinations like lakehouses, warehouses, or SQL databases. Imagine the possibilities of enterprise-grade data solution. So get ready to master the Power Query. What will you get in this video? Over the next 3 hours, I will take you through everything you need to know to become a Power Query Pro. From the basics of data transformation to advanced tricks, I have got you covered. And the best part is, every skill you learn today is fully functional to Dataflow Gen 2 in Microsoft Fabric, your gateway to modern data engineering and integrated data analytics. So are you ready to elevate your data analytics skills to unlock the full potential of Power BI and Microsoft Fabric? Let's dive into Master Power Query and take the first step towards becoming data transformation expert. So I welcome you to this video and hope you will like it. Please share your experiences, questions in comments, and don't forget to share it with your friends and colleagues. Now time has come that we understand what is Power Query. So Power Query, you can say, is one of the powerhouse in Microsoft Power BI. Power Query is the data transformation and data preparation engine. So basically when you talk about, how do I manipulate the data, how I going to make it into a shape. We talk about that, in Power BI we need to have a star schema. Then if it is not in a star schema, how do we transform and put it into a star schema? If our data is not clean, how are we going to make it clean and going to put it into a format where Power BI can understand it easily or the DAX engine can work better? So that is where the role of Power Query comes in. Everything which you are bringing into the Power BI is typically coming in via the Power Query layer. So we have the Power Query layer. Post that, what transform data we got from the Power Query layer, that comes to the models. On those models we create relationship, create DAX measures, and then create visualizations. Power Query comes with a graphical interface for getting data from the sources and a Power Query editor for applying the transformation. So you will see that it has a UI interface basically which is going to help you to do various operations. So those operations are pretty easy, but for everything what you are seeing there is a basically code behind that which you can open into the advanced editor and can check it out. Because the engine is available in many products and services, the destination where the data will be stored depends on where the Power Query was used. Basically, Power Query is not only used in Power BI. In case of Microsoft Fabric, we have Dataflow Gen 2. In case of Azure, we have Azure Dataflow. There is a Dataflow in the Power BI service also. So there are different places where you can have a destination. Like Microsoft Fabric, Dataflow Gen 2, which is also using Power Query, do provide a destination option to you. Using Power Query, you can perform the extract, transform, and load ETL process for data. So basically in Power BI, if you wanted to do ETL, it's natively Power BI ETL, then you have to use Power Query. So let's talk a little bit about Power Query experience. The Power Query user experience is provided through Power Query editor user interface. The goal of this interface is to help you apply transformation you need simply by interacting with the user-friendly set of ribbons, menus, buttons, and other interactive components. So you have set of menus like home, transform data, custom column, etc. Using that you can do tons of operations. All these operations are pretty intuitive. They have been given a name by which you can understand them. And there are steps which perform quite a few complex operations. Like when you go to pivot data or unpivot data, they are performing real complex operations. But for you, it's just one click. Power Query experience you will get at two places. Definitely one is you are getting in Power BI Desktop, another one you are getting in Power BI Online. So Power BI Online, you will find the integrations such as Power BI Data Flows, Microsoft Fabric Dataflow Gen 2, Microsoft Power Platform Data Flows, Azure Data Factory, wrangling data flows, and many more that provides the experience through the online web pages. So these are online experiences. And as you know, your favorite Power Query for desktop found integrations such as Power Query for Excel and Power BI desktop. So both in Excel and Power BI desktop, we do have the Power Query experience. What Power Query use internally? So Power Query use a language which is known as AMP language, which is basically for the transformation. So the Power Query engine uses scripting language behind the scenes for all Power Query transformation. The Power Query formula language, it's known as AMP. AMP language is data transformation language of Power Query. Anything that happens in the query is ultimately written in AMP. So basically, if you're doing an operation, pivot operation, so there is some function of AMP which is getting executed, and then you're getting that. So what will happen when you open the advanced editor, you will be able to find out the code. So right now at this stage, we'll not discuss is what is inside this advanced editor. As you become the advanced Power BI developer, you will be able to see that code inside that one. And in our beginner series, we have discussed quite a few functions. All the Power Query functions which you can use has been discussed in the beginner series. All the table function, the list function, all these has been discussed in detail there. So please go ahead and also watch that series. Means once you are a little bit comfortable with this one, there are quite a few videos in the beginner series which you will be able to watch. So let's move ahead. If you want to do advanced transformation using Power Query engine, you can use advanced editor to access the script of the Power Query and modify it as you want. As I said, advanced editor is there, and we do manually write down the script if needed. We can modify the script as per our requirement. These all we can do. It is not only the graphical user interface which is going to do everything for us. If user interface function and the transformation won't perform the exact changes you need, use the advanced editor or the AMP language to fine tune your functions and transformation. We can go ahead and change these things, and sometimes we solve the complex problem. At that time we realize, okay, it's really difficult if I simply try to combine some steps. So we go ahead and write down manually the Power Query code and run it. So now what we are going to do, we are going to go ahead and look at basic operations of Power BI which you must know as a beginner, and then from there you can pick up and can do more and more complex transformation. You can combine transformation and solve some problems. You can go ahead and write down nested functions of AMP language and create your own solutions around it. Let's understand data transformation, and which is also known as Power Query. So what happens is when we start data loading, especially in the import mode in the Power BI, the data, when it get imported, the first place where it lands, it is into the data transformation mode. But what happens is most of the time we just simply load the data, so we are not aware that the data was actually passed through the Power Query layer or the data transformation layer. Our query transformation or the transform data layer is really strong, and we can do a lot to improve the quality of the data. It is kind of a ETL, data quality improvement, data transformation engine. So let's begin by using the Power Query. Typical way to reach Power Query is transform data. So when you do this, you will reach Power Query layer. But when you load a new data also, you can, instead of loading the data, you can use transform data. And in that manner, you can also reach to Power Query. And we will use the same method. For this part of the video, what we are going to do is we are going to use this file pivotdata.xls, which is again available on my GitHub account, and you'll get a link. Right click on the raw, copy link, and go to Power Query, click on get data, web, give the URL, click on OK. You got a pop-up. There are quite a few things which are available in this file, and what I'm going to do is I will take most of these things, and instead of load now, I will use transform data. Transform data will take me to the Power Query module, and Power Query module which can be used to transform data. Also, sometime when you have huge amount of data, you don't want to load it directly, you can come to this module and reduce it. The data are not in final shape, just like the data we have loaded right now. You can come to this place, transform it, and then start loading it. You have an option here for close and apply, which you can use once you are done with the transformation. Apply, stay here and continue. Close and apply means close and the changes would be applied, and you can go ahead and analyze that. Various tabs, and the most important tabs which you are going to use for the transformation is home tab. There are tons of transformation available here. Then the transform tab, this includes a lot of transformation. Add columns, not only you can add the columns, but Other than that, there are transformation which can be done while adding the column. You can do that. Then inside the view, you have the column quality, column distribution, column profile. So if you are now looking at the data, you might be seeing that, it is showing the column distribution right now. Distribution means how many distinct value you have and how many unique value you have. You might ask, what is the difference between distinct and unique? Distinct means how many distinct values I have, like A, B, C, D, 9 values. I have distinct values. Then what's the difference between distinct and unique? The distinct value which are non-repetitive. If you look at the second column, it is saying there are only 2 values which are basically non-repetitive. So if you see 78, it is actually repeating. Okay. If you look at 56, it is actually repeating. So one of the distinct value is 56, but it is repeating. If you look at 90, it is one of the values which is distinct but repeating. 80 and 45 are the values which are the distinct, which will become part of the distinct values, but they are not repeating. So that's how unique and distinct are different. Then you can also add column quality. Column qualities give you valid, error, and empty. So the data which I have is empty, but if you have a data like this one, you have the empty rows. 25% of rows are empty for this particular column. Then comes the column profile. Now column profiling is pretty strong. It provides you a lot of information like count, error, empty, distinct, unique, empty string, min, max. And if you have a number column, let's go to a table where you have a number column also. So here in this one we have a number column. So in the case of number column, it will also give you min, max, average, standard deviation, odd, even. So many things it will tell you. So if you want to know more about your data, then you can use column profiling, column quality, and column distribution under the view tab. Now you learned about these column profiling, column distribution. Let's also pay attention to the panes. On the left hand side we have pane where all the queries has been given. On the right hand side all the steps have been given. Whatever you are doing here, every step is getting captured other than these observation of profile. So how this data came in, what was the source? The Excel kind of a source we had. Then how the navigation has happened. You selected a sheet, fill sheet. Then promoted the headers have been promoted. Change type has changed. Now any transformation you do, any column you add, other than the rename queries, everything is getting tracked. And what would happen, all these steps you can look what was previous stage, what is the current stage, and these can be reverted. Middle steps can also be deleted provided the next 2 steps can adjust to each other, otherwise they will give error. So everything what you're doing is trackable here. Unlike DAX where you create a formula, you know the formula, but you don't know whether you created formula A before or formula B before. You don't know. But here anything you do rename, you do transformation, like we are going to do pivot data, unpivot data, merge data, append data, everything will get tracked here. So it is not process where you are not aware of the steps. Every step will be captured and will be shown to you. Now let's look at this data, the pivot data. Is it in the final shape and ready to be analyzed? No, it is not. The data is basically pivoted. In the Excel, somebody has moved the subjects on the columns, and this is a pivoted data. And to make this data more suitable for analysis, we have to unpivot it. So we have to go to transform data, and there we have option for unpivot. Unpivot columns, unpivot other columns means other than what you have selected. Like right now I can do unpivot other columns. I've selected name, I can unpivot other columns. Unpivot selected column. Now unpivot columns, first step can decide whether it need to do rest other 2. Unpivot selected columns, whatever I select, let's say if I select from here to here, math to English, then I will have to go and say unpivot selected columns. Now when do I use other columns or when do I use selected column? What happens if you have something known as month on the top? It is possible that number of months are going to increase. So you will get more months in the columns. In such cases, select the name kind of the column or the fixed categorical column and use unpivot other columns. Now you may come back and say no, the column which need to unpivot remains same, but the attributes may increase. So with the name I can get age tomorrow, I can get some other property. The subjects are going to remain consistent. In such case we will use unpivot only selected column. So here we'll click on the name and use unpivot other column. Once I unpivoted it, it is going to give me attribute and value column, and these attribute and the value columns are the one which has made my data now more suitable for analysis. What I can do here is basically in the last step of unpivoted other columns, I can go ahead and change the name to subject and marks. But don't do this in all the Power Query steps unless you understand that you can change the Let's have a look at this data. Is there something wrong with this data? Now this data you can work with, but there is something wrong. Actually, the measures which I have, they should be the columns, but they are on the rows. So sales and the margin, both editable. This is margin number, not percentage. They're actually in the rows instead of column. And that's the problem with this data. So basically this data is something which is already unpivoted, and I want to pivot it. And to correct this data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select measure and value. I'll go to transform and I'll use this pivot data option. I click on the pivot data. It will ask what is the value column, which is the column you want to aggregate, and then what is the kind of aggregation. Now here I have one value which is doubled up. So if you don't have any value which is doubling up, you can use don't aggregate. But there is one value which is doubled up, and that's why I wanted to first select don't aggregate and wanted to show you that it's going to show me an error for that. So if I use don't aggregate, it will going to show me error because there are two values for this particular combination. So it says it's getting a list. So what I'm going to do here is I can go to the gear icon here. At the last there is a gear icon. I can click on that. I can go to the advanced option, and instead of don't aggregate, I can use sum. Or you can delete this tab and add it again. Let me do the sum, and now I'm getting the correct pivoted table. The data was unpivoted from the source. I pivoted it. I can use now close and apply to use this data, but we'll continue to do more transformation. What's wrong with this data? Quite a few things. The header is not placed correctly. There are full blank rows. And sometimes what will happen, you are bringing in Excel data, you may get full empty rows at the end. Somebody might have traveled through that Excel sheet, created those empty rows. So how do we remove those completely empty rows? The problem doesn't end here. In this data, I see complete duplicate rows. The rows are completely duplicated. So I want to remove. My data doesn't have complete duplicate rows. That's kind of data I wanted to have. And these are few transformations which I need. So let's start doing these transformations. So first transformation I want to do is I want to make the first row as the header. Under the home tab, we have option use first row as header. Let's do this transformation. Promoted headers transformation has been done along with the change type. Now the second transformation which I want to remove the blank rows. So under the home tab, we have remove rows and keep rows. This time we are going to use remove rows. Under the remove rows, you have remove top row, remove bottom rows. You can give the number of rows you want to remove. Sometimes what happens, you have a report where some additional stuff is there, and then you are using that, you might have additional row than the top. There is a report where bottom something is written you don't want. So remove the top and the bottom rows. Remove alternate rows. Remove duplicates, which is the next step you want to do. Remove blank rows, the step which you want to do right now, and remove errors. If there are some error rows, let's remove those. So remove blank rows, completely blank rows we are going to remove, and it removed the blank rows. Now the next thing, so now there are no blank rows. Now I want to remove the complete duplicate. But when you are doing this operation, you need to be a little bit careful, because if you select a column and try to do that operation, it is going to be a little bit different than the operation which you want to do using the complete table. So here, because my rows are exactly duplicate, what I need to do here is basically click on this, so that no rows is selected, and then go to remove rows and use remove duplicates. Look at what it is done. Table.distinct remove blank rows. This is the step I want when I want to remove complete blank rows. But let me go to another one. Here if you see, in this row I have 90 and 90 duplicate. There are few null values. If you go here remove rows and use remove duplicate, you see what has happened. Just taken a column name. The duplicates are not the row duplicate. It is the particular column's duplicate which has been removed. So you know the difference between two. The column will be column duplicate. So it may happen that there are no row duplicates, but when you delete it on the column, the duplicates get removed. So the column duplicates, because of that the complete row got deleted. So be careful about that. I don't need that right now. And the beauty with Power Query is remove the step back at the previous position. So now what's wrong with this table? Actually, there is nothing wrong. This is perfect table, but there is something which we want to learn. It's not the best example of the table what we can have here. I want to learn something known as in the transformation. Fill up and fill down. In the maths, if you see after 90, I don't have any marks. And what I wanted to do is, sometimes you have, what happens in Excel, you create those pivot kind of a table. 90 is repeating, so only 190 will come. Now I want to do the fill down, so it should fill in the 90. So under the transform tab, you have this fill down. So 90 will repeat. Now, in the case of physics, there's only upward movement. Means there are blank rows and then we have a number. So here I will use fill up. Under the transform tab, again fill up. Now in this column I could do any of these operations. In this I can also do any of these operations. So fill up and fill down, it takes the value on the top. If there is anything which is blank, it's going to replace those value with the last available value. And very useful transformation, very difficult to do otherwise, but Power Query made it easy. So these kind of transformation is something which enables you to improve your data quality. They are available inside the Power Query. Now let's come to this table, and in this table we wanted to learn the feature of replace value. Now first of all, this table is not in the proper shape, so what I'm going to do here is, now instead of going to those options, I clicked on this table icon and there are options here, and one of the option which is there is use first row as header, and I'm going to use that. Now I want to learn replace values, and the objective is twofold. How do we replace null values? How do we replace any other value? And how do we replace some value with a null value? So we have this replace value option on the right click. We have replace value, but it is going to replace in this particular column only. What I can do is I can select multiple columns also with the shift. And under the transform tab, I also have replace values, or right click replace values. So you can go to replace values. What I want to replace here in both the columns, what I want to replace. Now there is a value called known as GG. I want to replace this value with ABC. It's available in both the columns. If you observe that here and here. Now there are advanced options. Match the entire cell content, replace using special characters. So I can use the first option now, but I don't want to use, let it replace. So you will see there were triple G here, and because there was a triple G here and it replaced the only two G's. So you can go to the back previous tab and see this is triple G where only two G's were replaced. The first match was get replaced. How do we replace the null values, or how do we replace something with a null value? If you see here, this column also have null values, this column also have null value. Click on both of these columns with shift, replace values, and for null you have to write down NULL, and then you can replace it with the value NA. But if this null is NULL null text, then I'll tell you the one quick fix for that. So once you do this fix, and you can see the null values are replaced with NA. Now if this null is a string, you can do the same step and come back here and put this null into double quotes. So you will see the formula here, and this is the step. In that step you can go ahead and replace. If I do here right now, this will not find any null value, will not replace it, the null text value. Go ahead and change this. Now what I would like to do here is this hyphen. I want to replace this value. I clicked on that and I say I want to replace this value with what? I want to replace this with NULL, null. Replace with null. Click OK. So it's again giving replace table.replace value in the last step. See, every time it uses the last step, hyphen with null, replacer.replace value is item category column. Only in that particular column we have done it. But if you look at the previous steps, you find that it has been executed on multiple columns. You can give n number of columns and you can execute on that. So this is replace value for you. So what is wrong with this data? The data itself is transposed. So the rows are on the columns are on the rows. The dates should have been in the rows, they are in columns. The major sales and margin should have been in the columns, they are in the rows. So we need to transpose this. So click on this table icon so that nothing is selected. Suppose that go to transform tab and use the option transpose. The data will get transposed, but still it is not the correct or the final shape of the data. The first row contains the header. And to overcome that, you will go to the home tab, and inside the home tab on the right hand side, you have an option, use first row as header. Also, when you click on the down arrow, you have the reverse option also, use headers as first row. Sometime it may happen that you bring in the data and you don't have headers. It may create the first row as header. You want to revert it. So as of now, I'm going to use the use first row as header. So the first row, which I have the row number 1, should become the header. And this is added one additional transformation for promote data. And after the promote data, Power BI do try to change the data type to correct your data types automatically. And as you can see in this step, it has automatically detected the correct data type. So this is the additional step which has been added. And because of this step, you now have the correct data type and you have the correct format also. Let's now learn the operation merge, which is basically the operation merge. What it does, it can join the two tables. You can use any kind of join like inner join, left join, right join, and anti joins also. I'll explain you what those are, and can combine two tables. So I have a couple of tables which I want to merge basically, and the merge is basically you matches the rows and then you merge. It's not append one below each other. That's not the merge here. So merge here is basically you join them. So what you call in the SQL joining two tables using the joins. Here actually we are going to create a new table or new query when we join them. In the Power Query, you usually call it query when we join and execute. So I basically have two tables here. So first table is master table. It's not true master. It has a couple of duplicates, and I have knowingly kept those duplicates, that what impact duplicates can have. Pay attention to the category IDs which we have 1, 2, 3 and 5. The second table which I have is the detail table, along with which I want to merge this. Pay attention to the category IDs 1, 2, 3 and 4. So 5 is there which is not here, and 4 is here which is not there, and I have kept it for a purpose. And category ID 1 is repeating here for a couple of rows. Category ID 2 is repeating, but not going to play such a major role because it is expected in the detail it is repeating, but the 1 is repeating in the master also. So now let's start our journey. We can click on any of these tables. I'll start by clicking on master. Go to the home tab and use merge queries. I will use this down arrow because it gives me two options: merge queries and merge queries as new. If I use merge query, the data would be merged in this current table, but I would like to use merge queries as new. This will allow me to create new tables, and I'll keep on explaining you different kind of joins. Merge queries as new. Master table, we got it. Let's click on detail table. How do we join? Click on category ID and go and click on cat ID. If you have multiple columns, assume you have, then control plus click will give you the options. So here again, control plus click. You want to remove, again control and click. So I only want to do one, so I'm doing only on one column, but you can do it on multiple columns. The first join I want to do is inner join. And what does the inner join do? Only matching columns. Whatever rows are matching, it is going to do that. After selecting this, I'll click on OK. It is showing how much is matching, and definitely not everything is going to match because we have some missing IDs on both sides. So let me click on OK. And as you can see, it has given me a table, and right away in the table first is going to be complete, and table 2 we need to expand. But you can see the missing ID 5 here. Let me expand and see, does it make any difference? So when I expand it, it asks me what all you want. Right now I can choose to get everything. And also I'll uncheck this because this is going to prefix the table name otherwise. So I'll uncheck this use original column name as prefix. So I got this data now. If you see here, observe this. The category ID 1 is now 4 rows, 2 from the header and 2 from the details, so it became 4. Cartesian product is happening 2 by 2. So that is why our master table should never have duplicate. We could have done remove duplicates before this. Now this is inner join, and because of the inner join, we have lost 4 and 5, 4 in the details and 5 in the header. Now let's go back and let me rename this table first of all. Double click or right click, rename inner join. As you might have observed that this has not added a step. It means this thing cannot be reverted. Now let's go back to the master again. Follow the same flow. Merge queries as new. Master table is already there. Select the detail table. Category ID, cat ID, and this time we are going to do left join. What does left join means? All from the first and matching from the second. So whatever is matching, and if there are multiple rows getting generated because of that, it will generate that. But whatever is left out, which is not joined, if it is part of the table 1, it will bring that. And all those corresponding value from the table 2 would be null for that. So that's left join from you, all from the first and matching from the second. It is showing how much match you're going to get, and let me click on OK now. Again, we get the first table, columns and expansion for details. I'll expand it and let me click on OK. It has unchecked that because last time I unchecked, so it will remain unchecked, and let me click on OK now. And as you can see, we got category ID 5 from the header, for which we don't have any corresponding data in details, but because of the left join, it is coming in. Let's rename this table as left join. Right click, rename left join. Let's go back again to the master table. Merge queries as new. Master table, let's take the detail table, category ID, cat ID, the join, and right join. Right join means all from second. So the missing ID, so the additional ID 4 is going to come now, but we will miss 5 because 5 is on the left hand side. But what we are saying, all the matching things will come from the details, plus additionally whatever the details contain, that will also come. Let me click on OK. Now this time you start seeing a null row already. It means there's something which is coming for which we don't have a value in the left hand side of the table. Table on the top is here in the left. I expand the details using this expand icon. I'll include all the columns, just press OK. And as you can see, we have one row where we have category ID 4, which was not present in our table, the master table. Let me rename this right join. Let's do the journey again. Merge queries as new. Master table, detail table, category ID, cat ID, and this time we'll use full join. From both, matching will match, and whatever is not going to match from both the tables is going to come. And again, it is showing what is matching, what is not matching. Let's click on OK. You see a blank row. You see category 5 also. Expand. Once you expand, you can get all the column in, and you will see now both the rows, one from the left side having blank because category ID 4 only exists in second table. One having blanks on the right hand side, no blank on the left because category 5 does not exist in the detail table. So this is full outer join for you or full join for you. Let's rename this as full join. Double click, rename. Let's continue to now two interesting kind of joins. Click on master table, merge query down arrow, merge query as new, master, details, category ID, cat ID. And the most interesting join which we could use is left anti and right anti. Let me use left anti this time. Rows only from first. Something which exists in the table 1 or the table on the left hand side which is not present in the right hand side table, which is typically category ID 5. Which is not matching is going to come. That too for the left table. So non-matching rows is come. If you remember, we have something known as except or minus set operation. Something which is present in the table 1 or table A and not present in table 2 or table B. So you will see we are having the category 5 row is coming in, and we know there's not going to be any match data in the details, but anyway we can expand and check it out. Actually after this join there is no benefit of expanding, but to understand this we have expanded it. So this is left anti. Now let's go back to the master again and try the last join we wanted to have in the merge queries. Merge queries as new, and we are going to try right anti with the detail table. So master and detail, category ID, cat ID, right anti join. Only the rows available at the right table, the bottom table here in this case. Whatever is only available in this table which is not matching with the master table is going to come here. Let's click on OK. It shows one row with the blank, and when we expand the detail we will see category ID 4 coming in here, and there is no data on the left for that. So the row which is not having a matching data which is on the right hand side is coming here, and that is right anti join for you. Let's rename. You can use these merge to combine the tables. In Power BI, we prefer star schema, and sometimes you may come across a situation where the tables are not in star schema. In such cases, you can use Power Query to create star schema. If required, sometime you may want to duplicate the tables to do that, because in the star schema, facts are self-sufficient. So let's say you have a header table. Header act as a dimension as well as it need to be merged with the detail table. In such cases, you can duplicate the table and use it. So how do we duplicate? Click on any of the table. Let's say I have this detail table. I want to duplicate it. Right click, duplicate. Don't use reference. It's going to reference that. So you can call it as detail 2. It's getting duplicated, and then you can do your merge operations. We had this detail table and we duplicated and created another detail table too. Let me go ahead and add one more column here. How do we add a column? We can simply add some formula, or I can split it to add a column, or I can duplicate it. So you can right click and duplicate a column, and let me call it as a name too. And why am I doing this? I want to show you something known as operation, append operation. Now append operation is typically you want to union the data, you want to combine that. So the operation which is append here is kind of a union all, means it's just going to append the rows. Second is, unlike the SQL union or the DAX union where you need the same size of the table or the same number of columns in the table, it's not necessary. And that is why when I had a detail and detail 2, I just additionally added a column in the detail. So click on any of the column. Click on any of the table and then go to append. Again, you have two options, append queries and append queries as new. So what I want to do here is basically I want to use the append queries as new. So let me use append queries as new. Now detail is the first table. If you have 3 or more, you can use this particular UI. For 2 tables, you can use this UI, first table, and you can select the second table. And the second table which I wanted to select is basically the details 2 table. Details table and details 2 table. Let's click on OK. And as you can see that both the tables are appended one after another one. They're just combining the tables with all the possible columns. There is no deletion of duplicate here. And definitely I have now created a new additional column, so it's not going to delete any duplicates. As you know, we have removed duplicate option in case we wanted to do a union all kind of operation, we can do that. Now in this case, you can see that the additional column do have come, which is part of only one table. And
the rows are blank for the table for which it was not available, and that other table where it was available, it has come. Now post this, if you want to delete duplicate, now the delete duplicate can happen based on an ID column or based on the complete table. Now here I would like to delete the duplicate based on the ID column. I can click on the ID column, I can go to remove rows and remove duplicates. So I'm trying to do kind of a union operation in the SQL world where you actually don't have duplicates. Now in this case, definitely it has taken a decision to take some set of columns from the tables when there are multiple values available. So in this case, this has taken the name to where the null values are there. So you can append, you can remove duplicates and create a union or union all kind of a scenario based on the requirement.
Let's learn how to create a custom column in Power Query. And for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the same file here, the sales file which we have used. And the reason for that is basically because I want to show you the same formula which we created there. So let me go to the github.com, and in GitHub, this is the file which we are using, sales data used in video. Right click on the raw, copy link, come back to the Power BI. And now I'll tell you directly from the Power Query under the Home tab. If you click on the new sources, you will be able to add new sources from here. So go to new sources, click on web, which is available directly into the menu. Give the URL, click on OK. And I load only the sales here. And now you don't see the button of load data and transform data. There is only OK button, because when we opened it from Power Query, it's going to put us back onto the transform data mode only. Because it has put us into the transform data mode, it is not asking for the option whether you want to load the data or transform the data. So we have to transform the data. Sometimes we may get this kind of error. You can simply refresh. Now if you remember, we created few columns there. So same column we wanted to create here. We will take one or two example of such columns and also create some different kind of new custom columns. So once you are on the table, you can go to add columns. And inside the add column, you have column from example, custom column, invoke function, conditional column, index column. Now, first of let's learn index column. What is the index column? Sometimes what happens, you are bringing in a table and you don't have row numbers. And row number is required sometime because I want to create it as a dimension. Means I went ahead and I removed the duplicate and I created a dimension. I need a unique number. Then how do I do that? I can add index column. Sometimes you require row number just because in a visual you want to display, and Power BI always summarize, so you need one unsummarized column. So in that case, you can add index column. So you can add index column from 0 or from 1, or you can even modify it. So I added an index column. It is a unique row number column for me. I can decide from where it should start, how much increment it should have. So if I want, let's say 2 to increment, I can make it 2. What would happen here is it will become odd numbers. I want to start it from, let's say 3, I can make it 3 and it will start from 3. So these changes I can do. Let me make it 1 and 1. Now, this is one type of custom column. Let's go ahead and add another kind of custom column, which is basically custom column based. What I want to add is gross. What is my definition of gross is quantity multiplied by price. Now here we have no option to select the data type, but in the Power Query online version, the data flows, we are getting that option to select the data types. Here we don't have. So let's click on OK. And you will see it doesn't take a data type here. So what I can do is whatever data type I want, I can give that as a last argument. So be on that step, put a comma and use type. Let's say I want int 64 or decimal. So here I can give type number or numeric. And let's try this out. And it has become the number data type. So in this manner, if you remember the type, you can give the type. Otherwise, you have to use the option here. You click on this number column or ABC, what was written, and you choose the data type. And it will add a step for that. To avoid the step, I simply written type number because I remember that it can be added like a number. Same way, you can add another custom column for COGS. And that is nothing but quantity multiplied by cost. Now you can, if you use this, here you click on this number column or ABC, what was written, and you choose the data type. See, it adds an additional step. But that is why, just to avoid this additional step, I had this script. I can remove this and go ahead and put a comma and put the third argument, which is not available here. Now, the new column which you created, you can again use them in creation of columns like discount amount. You can go here and create discount amount. You can use the column which is previously created, which is nothing but gross, multiplied by discount percentage, divide by 100. If you remember, the discount percentage is absolute, and that is why we need to divide it by 100. Again, I can change the data type.
Now, if you want to create a conditional column, you have option here to create a conditional column. So you can click on that and you can write down a conditional script. So if, let's say, sales date equals or less than equal to or is an after, so we say before what date, we'll say okay, it is before 2019. Let's go by years. And now go by month, double arrow take years. Is before 1 January 2019, then 1, else 0. So data before 2019 and after 2019. So you can create a conditional column. So it will give you values, and what all values we have. If they are not loading, we can click on load. So we have both 1 and 0 values. Depending on the dates, we will have value. It will always load a sample size of 1000 rows, and based on that, it will do the column profiling here at the end, if you see. But if you want all the rows, you can actually click here and you can use on entire data set. It is especially useful when you go to the view and you do this column distribution, column profiling, then you can use that. Now again, I can change the data type, but right now I'm leaving that. Now I can add this column manually also actually. I can go to the custom column and I can write down the condition of my choice. So let's say test. If quantity equals to 1, then unit 1, else many. So I'm saying if quantity is equal to 1, then 1, else many. This kind of condition I can give. And I can have multiple if else to create complex conditions. So 1 and many, 1 and many. Usually I have quantity 1, 2 and 3. So I'll get 1 and many for 2 and 3 I'll get. So in this manner, you can create quite a few custom columns. Now, some cases you have this additional column which you can create. You can add a column. So you want to measure a length. Let's say I want to measure the length of this column, but I don't want to use a transformation. I don't want to change this column. I want a new column. You can go to extract and say length. So it will actually give you the length of this column. Same way other operation on length like first character, last character, range, text before delimiter, text after delimiter, text between delimiters. So what happens in all such cases, it will actually go ahead and add a new column. So instead of transforming the current column, sometimes you don't want to transform the current column. You actually want the information in the next column. So this is really helpful here. Same way for parsing. If you have a XML or JSON column, you can parse. And other one, you can like format. Like I want this uppercase or lowercase, but I don't want to transform this column. I want a new column. So I can go ahead and use this. So this will add a new column. Just for an example, let me use this lowercase. And this time, instead of making this test as lowercase, it actually created a new column lowercase. In this manner, you can add custom columns in Power Query. So most of the column where you require multiplication kind of a stuff, you can add them in Power Query. Conditional column, you can add them in Power Query. Other transformation which are needed at row level, you can pretty much do all such columns in Power Query. There are formulas which can only be done on the aggregated data. For that, we cannot use this one. They are better suited on measure. So there is an option of column by example. You can create a new column by example. How that is, I'm going to give you one example. Now there could be more uses, have little complex data also you can use it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this text operation table, and in this text operation table, I'll go to the column. This is my column key true. I'll right click on that, and then there is option add column from example. Now I'll click on this option add column from examples, and here it is asking example. Let's say I put 1 column. What does it? It identify it that I am asking for text before delimiters, and based on that it is creating everything like text before delimiter. Now let me go ahead and replace this with 333. Now what is happening? It now identified that I need text after delimiter, and after which delimiter it is identifying that I need it after the third delimiter, and that is why you are seeing in the second row it is using 333555. Now in the same manner you go and type 222. What it will realize is that I need text between delimiter hyphen and hyphen, creating 2. In the next row also it is creating 2 and 1 to 1, etc. In this manner it is identifying that I need text between delimiter, and it is creating the data like that. Now let me click on OK. It would be added as a new column, and then you can look at the formula. So this formula which has been text between delimiter has been used in hyphen and hyphen. So based on the example, it try to do that operation, and based on that operation, you will now get text before delimiter or text after delimiter, or there could be any other operations which has been identified, be done here. These are the various way in which you can create a new column in Power Query. And once you are done with those columns from the home, you can go and click on close and apply, or simply apply, and those columns would be added as part of your query, which will be known as a table visualization part. The next operation which we wanted to learn is under the transform, and that operation is basically group by. Now the group by operation is something which can create a grouped column. Basically you have a complete table and group a data at a particular level and use this group by. So basically summarized table or aggregated tables, if you create, you can take help from group by. Now you have summarize in DAX which can do the similar job. There are other functions also like summarize columns also do the job. Group by can also do the job. So now here in Power Query, we are going to use group. So what I am going to do is I'm going to click on the sales table, and after that I'm going to click on group by. Once I click on the group by, it gives me two options, basic and advanced. In basic, it is asking for one group by and it is only asking one column. Now, what I can do here is basically I can go to the advanced. In advanced, I can add a grouping of my own choice. So I can say, okay, I want to group this data, let's say by city. And then here in the count columns, I can give a name of the column where the count has been written here. Then I can choose the operation sum, average, median, min, max, count rows, count district, all rows, etc. We will start with a simple example. We'll say we want to sum here. And what I would like to sum, I want to sum actually quantity here. Now here I'll say sum QTY. So this is the first kind of aggregation I want to create. Now I would like to add another column, then I can go ahead and do it. Let's say I want average price. Now average price is not the best thing to have it here, but let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say average and then we'll use. So you got a aggregated table now or grouped by table now, which is now giving you CTID, sum of quantity and average price. Now you can see the code here, table.group by, and what it is doing. So CTID, it is grouped on that, and based on that we have list.sum which is used on the quantity. Sum of quantity has been done and average of price. I can click on the setting icon back again here, and I reached back to the setting again, and what I can do here is I can say add grouping, and in this add grouping I can, let's say I add item ID. But I want two group by is not one. I want an aggregated table which is based on city ID and item ID, and now I'm getting my data based on the city ID and item ID. So in this manner I can get it. Now there is one more option which is there, and that would be helpful when you are going to do something like, sub index or sub rank, that kind of operation. That would be helpful, and for that what you have to do is, let's go back to the setting again. Now here in the add grouping, let me remove this, and here instead of sum operation I'll say all rows. I can give it any name whichever I want. Let me call it all row only. Now when you go here, so city ID and item ID, the data is grouped. And what happens is it's going to have a table here. So now there is a table which is at the city ID and item ID level, and if you add a column here, let's say add index here in this table, and now we have to write down the formula to do that. It's not going to be that I simply go ahead and write it here, add index. For that we have to use the M language, and using the M language we have to create a custom column, and there we, in this table itself, the table which is inside, we have to add a index column, and then we have to expand it back again and expand this table to get all the data. So you will expand and then you will get the complete sales table again, and then you will get the sub index. So these kind of operations I have explained on the channel, so you can check that out. So in this manner you can group all the rows, and then you can do operation inside the grouped data. So this is group by for you. I have shown you a few options, but there are further more options which you can explore out to create aggregated or what we call summarized tables.
We will come across a scenario in Power Query where we would actually like to split a column. We have quite a few options to split a column. So we can split by delimiter, we can split by number of character, we can split by position, lowercase, uppercase, digit, non-digit, non-digit, and digit. Now I've come up with this one data where I'm going to show you split by delimiter, but this data is really interesting because it's required double split, and you will not realize unless I do it. So first of all, even before I use first row as header, I need to split this data, okay, because name and ranks are two different columns, but I need to split this data. And how do I need to split it? I need to use under the home tab split column, and by delimiter, and space is my delimiter, it is automatically identified for each occurrence. In this case it is the leftmost occurrence, or that's the only occurrence, but you can decide if you have more than one occurrence, leftmost or rightmost or each occurrence, and then you can go to the advanced and decide whether you want columns or rows. In this case I want two columns, and that's correct, it has automatically identified that, but in case you want to check, you go ahead and check that out. In case of rows, there is no limitation, it can split and give any number of rows, but definitely in columns we have to specify. Let's press OK. Now we got the two columns.
So now at this stage, I can use first row as header. Now the moment I do first row as header, you might have realized that this change type has changed the game for us. It actually has detected it as integer and removal of comma. That's what we don't want. So what we have to do is we have to go to this tab transform columns. Either we remove it or go and copy this type text, and in the rank also you use type text so that it remains as a text. Now it is a text. Now we can continue to use it. Now the rank column is something which we further wanted to split. We again go to split column, split by delimiter, and this time for each occurrences of the delimiter, it has correctly detected that. In the advanced option, I'm going to use rows. No more columns. I want multiple rows for that. I don't want columns this time. And in the rows, it is not going to ask you how many rows. Create that many rows which is required. Columns, the number is limited. And let's press on OK. And now the data is in the shape where we can use it for analysis. We've taken a case where we actually applied the same function twice in two different manner and get the data into the shape. Now there are other ways to split also, and for that what I've done is I have this table text operation which you can use. I can show you some of those operations. So let's say you click on this key one and you can say split by number of characters. I can split, I can get the year, first 4 are year. So by number of characters. So I can say once far as left, I only want the first 4 characters and rest I want into the second column. I don't want the repetition. Number of columns here is going to be 2 because I only want once. If it repeatedly, you need to tell how many columns. I only wanted once, so I'll go ahead and press. I'll select once as far left as possible, the left hand side, and multiple columns, and they're going to be 2 columns is this time. So we are able to split and take out the year from this one. So this is split by number of characters. Now then there is a split by position. So split by position from 0 to 6. So Power Query start with indexing start with 0, and then there are advanced option columns or rows. You say okay fine, 0 to 6, let's split that. So now you got another split based on that. And now this change data type on the first column we don't need, actually we need type text only, and because of that only it's not showing what value we actually got. So this is the value we actually got. Then you have the uppercase, lowercase, and all those combinations. I will just show you one of them. So this is uppercase and lowercase, so you can go and split by column by lowercase to uppercase or uppercase to lowercase. So let's execute one of them, lowercase to uppercase. So when the things change from lowercase to uppercase, at that time we will split. So this was lowercase, and post that there was an uppercase, so it's got split. There is uppercase and after that there is a lowercase, there is nothing got split. These were 3 were lowercase and after that we got uppercase, so it got splitted. Similarly, digit and no digit split, you can go ahead and use by non-digit and digit, or by digit and non-digit. So let me use one of them. Let's use the second option, non-digit to digit. So you will only see split where first there was a non-digit and then digit. In this manner there are multiple things which we can do. There are next set of operations. Basically here we have lowercase, uppercase, capitalize the word, trim, clean, add prefix, add suffix. Now let me go to this table and I'll go to column 2 and let me try to now to understand this format options. Now very easy to understand this lowercase and uppercase. You click on any of the column, you go here and say lowercase. I go to this column, everything is already in uppercase, so I can go here and say format, capitalize each word. So first letter would be capital. Now this is all in lower. If you see here the column name, the first row is in the lowercase. I can go and click on the format and uppercase, it will do an uppercase. Now let me use first row as header and then do other operations. Now I can go here again and under the transform format I can use add prefix. It will add a prefix to the column. Let me add hyphen, and in case I want to add a suffix I can go to the format and I can add a suffix also. Let me add at the rate here, and it's not doing that operation on the null value. Please remember that. Now what is this clean and trim? Trim you might have understand, but what is this clean? To understand the clean, let me go to the home tab and create one enter data script, and here let me add a shift enter a space B space C D D D enter E A F G. Now next one I'll go here and add space A space. Next one I'll add space B C V C, and then here no space B and space, and let me rename this now. and edit. I got some data. You can see the values here, lying here and there. Now there is cleaning required. So first operation which I want to do here is basically I'll go to transform, format, and I'll do clean operation. Now the clean operation removes the non-printable character, especially the enter. So you can see now the data has come into the one row, but it has not removed the white spaces before and after it. They are still white spaces. Like here, if you go, B and do have white spaces. Okay, VBB do have white spaces in the beginning. Now I'll go on this column and I'll use the format trim operation, and once I do the trim, it removes the white spaces from left and right, and I'll get the trimmed version of this one. Now you see there's nothing before and after, it's only BN, only VBB. So these are the operation which allows you to improve the data quality. So the transformation, the data quality improvement, all these can be done. After that you have some operations to take out the date part and all those. So if you go to this date time table and you want to take out the time only, it will give you time only. You want to take out the date only, you will get the date only. You want to take out part of the day, year, month, quarter, you will get those also. You can extract the date parts. Again, these kind of transformation you can do here. So these are the various kind of transformation you can do in Power Query. Once you are done with all your transformation, or maybe don't always wait for all the transformation to happen, you should keep on doing this in between. You should keep on applying the changes so that it doesn't take too much of time at the end to do it. But right now the time has come that I'll use close and apply, and once I do close and apply, what it's going to do is all the tables is going to process again. The complete data will be loaded and processed again, and that is something which Power Query does. It basically, it's actually go to load the data model and go to process by each step by step and go to do it. And it has processed everything. Now the tables are now available for analysis, and if you go to the table view, you will see the data into the final shape. So if you go to the pivot table or unpivot table, you will not see the data in the initial shape what you had. You see the data into the final shape. So Power Query helps us in creating transformed, cleaned data which can be used for data analysis.
So the next set of transformation which we actually wanted to learn is basically how to do multiple unpivot or double unpivot. Here what happens is you don't have a single column which is repeating. Actually there are more than one column which are repeating. So let's say there is a set A1, A2, then there is a set B1, B2, then there is a set C1, C2. So that is the set which is repeating. It is not that I have A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6 and I just would pivot them. In such scenario, how we are going to unpivot, that is what we have to learn. So let's look into this example and see how can we do double unpivot or multiple unpivot. So let me showcase you my data which I'm planning to use for today. So I have added this to the Power Data file and I will be loading this file to the GitHub. So here, as you can see, I have item on my first column, and then I have state and value combination in the column. So I have state 1 value 1, state 2 value 2, state 3 value 3, state 4 value 4, state 5 value 5. This is the combination which I have. Now this is not a simple unpivot use case where I have the states and I simply unpivot it and then I can use the data. So this requires a special treatment, or maybe I first unpivot the data and then pivot it. So let's go ahead and see how would we convert this data into the best suitable data for data analytics or for Power BI. So I have already opened Power BI, and let me jump out of that and I'll say get data, and inside the get data I'll bring my Excel sheet, and that Excel sheet is nothing other than Pivot Data, and you will be getting this on my GitHub account. And here you see that I got this unpivot pivot data. So just take this sheet, unpivot pivot data sheet, and then instead of loading, use transform data. Why would you use transform data? Because this data is not in a shape where we wanted to use. So why to load and then go to transform data and do the transformation? Why don't we directly go to the transform data? So I'll click on the transform data at the bottom of the pop-up, and it will directly take me to Power Query. Let me bring in Power Query window on this screen. So the Power Query window has opened, and now we have this data in front of us. So what action we wanted to do? So first of all, I'll select item and I'll go to transform, and inside the transform, I'll use unpivot columns and I'll say unpivot other columns. Now once I do, you can see I have state value in rows, but I don't want like this. The best way is state as a column and value as a column. Now to do that, I need to do a next step. In the next step, I would use one more transformation, and the transformation which I plan to use is split column. And in the split column is again available under the transform tab. I want to use split by delimiter in this case. You may have a little bit complex case, so you have to find out how you plan to split that. And here I'll click on the advanced option and I'll say I want to split into 2 columns. That's the most appropriate for this data. For each occurrence, yes, or sometime you may have to use leftmost delimiter. So first delimiter which it gets on that, and you have to say OK. Now what you see here is state number has been separated out. Now you can give it as a separate name there, but that we will do later. But you can click on now attribute and value, and you can go to pivot column again under the transform data. And which column is the value column? Yes, value column is the value column. Advanced option, what I wanted to do is I'll say don't aggregate, but I would prefer to do max if required. So you can take a count here. And once you load this data, instead of list.count, you click on the bar where we are seeing this formula. You say list.max. And now you can see state and value. We could have used don't aggregate, but in case don't aggregate doesn't work, you can use max like this. So I got state, I got value, and this could be state number or type. Let me call it type. Now this data is in a proper shape for analysis now. So this is how you deal with the data where you think it requires multiple unpivot. Now what we would like to do here is we like to understand how can we do cross join in Power Query. Now you have seen an example where we have actually done cross join in DAX. Now how do we do cross join in Power Query? Because there is no function cross join. If you remember, we had merge, which can do different kind of join like left, right, full, and full is not cross join. And then we have anti joins also. But how do we do cross join? Cross join means every row of a table will get populated against every row of another table. Table 1 has 3 rows and table 2 has 3 rows, end up getting 9 rows. So this is what the cross join is, and we would like to understand how can we do that in Power Query. So let me take you through Power BI and let me explain you the function, the cross join function which is there in the DAX, and then the question is how do we do that in Power Query. So let me do one thing is basically in Power BI desktop, I'm going to use enter data which is under the home tab, and I'm going to create 2 tables. And in the table 1, let me have that say number. I'm going to have some numbers, let's say 1, 2, 3 and 4, and let me call it D1. The table D1, I'm renaming it, and I'm going to say load. And a simple table. Once this table gets loaded, we will load another table. So now let me add another table. Now the table which I'm going to add is basically having the, let's say, text. So let me call it the value. And let me have value, let's say A, B, and C. Only 3 values. And let me call this table as D2. And let me say load. Very simple stuff. 2 tables having one column. Now I go to the table view and I'll show you these tables. So D1 has 1, 2, 3, 4. D2 has A, B, C. Now how do we do a cross join? So in the DAX, we go to the table tools. When we click on any of the table, we will get the table tool. And in the table tool, you have new table. Click on the new table and say cross. The name, left hand side is the name, and then we have function cross join. We can give tables. So I give D1, comma, D2, 2 tables. and I just press enter. Now what you see is 1, 2, 3, 4 A, 1, 2, 3, 4 B, 1, 2, 3, 4 C. Now I want the same thing in Power Query. How do I do that? So I go to my report view, or I could have done from there also, and I go to Transform Data, which is in the middle of the Home tab. And there I have another option, Transform Data, which will take me to Power Query. Let me bring in the Power Query window here. Now, how do I do it in Power Query? So if you remember, we have something known as Merge Queries under the Home tab of Power Query on the right. But here, when you go to the Merge Queries, you don't have any option for Cartesian. And even if we do full outer join, it's not going to serve our purpose, especially there is no join column here. So how do I do that? But to do that, what I can do is I can take any one of these tables and go ahead and create a new column. Add column, I call it custom column, and let me call it tab 2, and let me simply give here D2. D2 is a table. So it starts showing me the table. Now, once I get a table in a column, it starts giving me an expand icon. I'll expand this, and it asks what all column I will say value column I need, and I'll uncheck this use original column name as prefix. Let me press OK. Now as you can see, the moment I expand, it gives me ABC, 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 ABC. Because I've done it with D1, that's how it's going to happen. So for value 1, ABC, or then if you see for A, it is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Anyways, I could have done the same thing in D2. It would have given me A 1, 2, 3, 4, B 1, 2, 3, 4, C 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is how you do a Cartesian product or cross join in Power Query. So when I was trying to save this, it given me some error. So what I've done is basically I changed it to value 1. The reason it is giving error because D1 and D2 we are again using in the cross join. There the value column, and so because of that it was giving errors. In Power Query, it is possible to do much more complex operation than what we have done so far. Right now, what we are doing is we are combining certain set of operation and try to achieve the complex operation. But once we are able to understand all the complex M function, we can do much more powerful operations than what we have done so far. So let's understand basics of M for now. M is a case-sensitive language. What do you mean by case-sensitive language? In case sensitivity, what happens? Let's say you write down sales, and in one of the sales you write down S capital. That is different from the sales where S is small. As M is case-sensitive, so your column names with the title case or small case or uppercase are different from each other. Same is true for the tables. So when you are using them into your formulas or into your calculation, you need to take care of them. What is the process of working on M language? What is the syntax? Every language has a syntax. Let's say you are working with C or Java. In case of C, you create a main function where you write down the code. In case of Java, you start with a class and then there you have the main function. So every language has a particular kind of syntax. So what is the syntax we have for M? To create an M query in the query editor, you have to follow these basic process. First is create a series of query formula steps that start with let statement. So let is the first statement. Each step is defined by a variable name. So every step you will have a variable name, and M variable can be included by space using hash character as hash double quotes step name. So basically what happens, if you don't have the space in your variable names, it could be simply a name. But if you want to give a space, then you have to use hash, and in the double quotes, you have to give the name with the space. So let's say my name of the step is rename columns. So I'll give hash double quote rename space columns. This is how I will give the variable name if it requires space. A formula step can be a custom formula. Please note that the Power Query formula language is case sensitive. So Power Query formula language is case sensitive. It means if you write down, let's say rename column R capital C capital is different from R small and C small. In case of M query, each formula steps build upon a previous step by referring the step by its variable name. So what happens when you look at the code which is automatically generated by Power Query, you will find that each step is referring to the previous step. That is not necessary. When we start the coding, I'll showcase you that it is not necessary you refer it to the immediate step. You can do some calculation and post that you can also refer it. But typically what happens in Power Query when we are auto-generating, most of the steps are generating tables, and the table in the step 1 is getting referred by the step 2, and so on. Finally, what we do is we output a query formula step using the in statement. So basically, you will give a variable name finally after the in. Generally, the last step in used in the final data set result. So what happens, whatever is the last step, you actually try to return the result of the last step. However, it is not compulsory, but in a logical flow, that would actually happen. So let's take an example code. In this example code, you can see the code start with the let statement, and in the next line, you have variable name equals to expression, means you are assigning the expression to the variable name. In the next one, you have hash variable name equal to expression 2, means you are assigning to a variable name which is basically having the space, and finally you end up returning the variable name. Here, see, we are not returning the last step, we are returning a step before, so that is also possible. Just like every other language, we have the data types. Here we call it primitive values. A primitive value is a single part value such as number, logical, text, or null. A null can be used to indicate the absence of any data. Means if the value is not present, that's what we call null. So let's say binary is something like 0, 0 and something like that. Date is all your dates. Date and time, date along with the time. Date, time zone, it will also include date, time as well as time zone. Duration, now duration is not same as time. Duration will have date, hours, minutes and seconds. Then you have logical, which is true and false. Null means you have null value. Number, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can have decimal numbers. Text, you can have ABC or any kind of text which you want. Text can have numbers also. And then time, and time is different from duration. Time will have only time of 24 hours. It will not have the day component which duration has. In Power Query, we can use functions. A function is a value that when invoked with argument produces a new value. Means you have to give the argument, and when you invoke it, it will produce a new value. Functions are written by listing the function's parameter in the parenthesis. So in the parenthesis, you have to give the parameters, followed by goes to symbol, means this equal to an arrow is known as goes to symbol, followed by the expression defining the function. For example, to create a function called my function that has 2 parameters and perform a calculation on parameter 1 plus parameter 2. So this is an example which has been given. So first statement is let my function equals to the parameters, parameter 1 and parameter 2. You can have more than 2 parameters. That's not limitation. That's just an example. And then the goes by or the arrow symbol. Then you have in the parenthesis parameter 1 plus parameter 2, means we are first adding them and then dividing it by 2. So this function is going to return the combined half value when we invoke it. And then in my function, you are returning the value which is finally returned by my function. We have some structured data values that include list, record, table, and some additional structure. Now list is something which is like a column. So basically a set of values is known as list. So a table column is also considered as a list. Record is a record where we have a column name and a value, column name and a value. It's basically like a row. So you can consider a table row as a record, and a table column, fully qualified table column name is considered as a list. Now there are differences. We cannot always use the same term, but this is just an example. What we will do when we actually go ahead and do the coding, we will use the table column as a list also, and we'll do the list operation on that. So these are the few data types which are really important, and there are tons of operations around list, record, text, number and dates. And if you are able to practice those functions, you will be able to solve many complex logics, and most of these functions are already discussed on my YouTube channel, so you can take advantage of that. In this series and video, we are going to consider some of them so that you can create foundation for using other functions. Let's jump out of the new Power BI file. I already opened a new Power BI file. And how do we reach Power Query? So we click on the transform data, and under that we again have the transform data. And from there we will reach the Power Query. Once we open the Power Query, you will find nothing is there. It is empty. What we have to do is we have to add a new source. For that we are going to use the new source option under the home tab. and from there we will go to blank query and add a blank query. What happens when you create the blank query? It creates it with default steps, and we have to modify those default steps. Now, how do we reach there? Reach, either you can use right click, advanced editor, or there is an advanced editor option in the home tab also. I will use the right click advanced editor. Let me open that. Now here in the source, let's say I can write down an integer 1. Then we click on done. Now you can see it is returning 1. And every time you return anything other than table, it gives you an option to convert that to a table. If it is not a list, it will give you convert to a list, or to a table. If it is a list, it will only give you convert to a table. It is returning right now 1, which is of number data type. Every time you do an operation based on that operation's return type, it is going to return that particular data type. I can go here, advanced editor again, and I can make it, let's say, double quotes, A, B, C. And if I return now it is returning a string. And the moment I return the string, I have different options like split, format. It identifies the return type, and based on that, it gives the different options to us. Same way, we can perform some operation, right click, go to advanced editor, and it is not necessary the name need to be source. So let's create a variable A equals to 1, comma, next line, B equals to 2, comma, E equals to A plus B, and let's return C. Let me click on done to close the advanced editor and get the results. Just like any other programming language, I am getting the results of C, which is A plus B equals to 3. Same way, again, we can go ahead, right click advanced editor, and we can modify it, let's say, to multiply this. But for multiplication, let's take a little bit different numbers. Let's take A is equal to 3, B is equal to 2, E is equal to A multiplied by B, and let's click on the done, and we are getting the expected result 6. It is not that we can do the operations on number only, we can do it on text also. So let's go back again using the advanced editor. Let's change these to strings now. A, I'm going to give in double quotes, Microsoft, without space. Second one we'll call is Power BI. Third one, let's try to add them. So A, ampersand, space, ampersand, B, let's return C. So C is appending Microsoft and Power BI with the space. Click on the done and let's check the result. The result is Microsoft Power BI, and it is a text, and we are getting option to edit the text. In this manner, you can do some basic operation. So let's leave this right now as Q1, query 1. I can double click or rename, right click or rename. These are various options are there. And as you see, every step has been given here, applied steps, and these steps can be deleted or added. Between steps can be added as per requirement. Now, right, let's understand in more detail what all steps we have created. So let's go back to the advanced editor again. And in advanced editor, you can see in the step 1, we have assigned a value. Step 2, we assigned a value. And step 3, we appended this value. And finally, in the end, we have given back that value. So how we have done it? Let variable and the data, variable and the data, variable and the operation, and then finally in the in we have the variable which we plan to return. So this is what we have done. Let variable, operation, and then finally press done. Now let's go ahead and try more stuff. So what I would like to do now here is, let me try to create a list. So for list, let's start again by creating a new query. So go to the home tab. We'll take a blank query, right click, advanced editor. Let me create a list. List is something where we give data into the angular brackets. Now it's a list of mixed 1, 2, 3. A, that's a mixed list I wanted to create. How to return the same. So you can see list of mix which I've created. Create one more list. Go back to the home tab. Use source. Blank query. Again right click. Advanced editor. And let's create list of numbers. So source equals to list of numbers. How do we give a list in the angular bracket? If you give the comma separated value, that is list. If you are giving numbers, need of double quote. If you want to give the text, then you have to give them in double quote. We are creating a list, angular bracket. When we use it, creates a list. Press on done and let's return this. We got a list 1, 2, 3 again. Now this time, if you look at here, you have option. As it is a list, there is only one option to table. There is no option to list here. Let's take one more example. This time we are going to create a list of list. Again, new source, blank query, right click, advanced editor. And here, inside the angular bracket, what I am doing is angular bracket 1, 2, 3, angular bracket 4, 5, 6, and then again angular bracket. So list of list I am creating. Click on done. And you can see there is a list. If you click on that, look at below, you will get the data. And this do allow you to expand. So once you convert it into a table, this will allow you to expand the list and further do more operations. Let's create list of text also. New source, blank query, right click, advanced editor, in the angular brackets, A, B, C, D, E, F, H, I, and let's click on that. Now we got a list of text value. Now we would like to create something which is a little bit more interesting. We want to create a record. How do we create a record? Let's go to the home tab, new source, blank query. Let's right click, advanced editor. Now in the square bracket, you have to write down the record. This square bracket, you can write down the record, and the record is what you have to name of the column and the value. Name of the column and the value. Name of the and the value. This is how you write down in the square bracket. Now there is no curly brace here, give us square bracket. Click on done. Now you got a record. Now record, when we convert to a table, let's take example here. Actually converts it into like 4 record. We have to actually transpose it now to use it. And this is the step which is automatically added. And let's look at here, advanced editor. And now you will understand that, how the previous step is referred. This was the previous step. And when we convert it to the table here, if you look, record to table, this step has been referred here. So we have source is referring to the source of the last step, and then in is referring to the last step name. This is how we refer steps in subsequent steps. Now let's take one more example, and this time what we are going to create is list of records. New source, blank query, right click, advanced editor. Here, now square ones are the records, and comma separated list of records inside the angular bracket creating the list. Click on done. You got records. You can see your records here. Let's convert it into 2 table. Okay, we'll select the option. Then you can see you got 2 records, and now you can expand the records. Expand the record and you will get a table like this. In this manner, these are the steps. So now, remember, these functions are automatically added by menu. Let me show you those into the advanced editor. But you can also manually write down these steps. If you know the function like table from list, table from expand record, you will be able to write down all these. And in the beginner tutorial series, I have covered most of these. You can go ahead and try that out. Now everywhere you see the reference of the last step. Returning the last step. In this manner, the entire flow is happening. Now let's take an example. How do we create a table? Now there are multiple ways to create table from record, table from list. But let's take one of the example when we wanted to create table. And the function which we are going to use is hash table. The new source, blank query, right click, advanced editor. And here we are going to write down hash table. Now after the hash table, what is the syntax? You need to give first a list which will contain the column names, and then you need to give the list of lists which will contain your each row. So list, then list of list. The 2 arguments, one is list and then list of list. These are the 2 argument hash table requires. Putting his hash table into the source and we are returning. Click on done and you will get your table. And you got a table. Directly we got a table. Let's try one more example. This example again we are going to use hash table, but with a little bit different syntax. Again blank query, new source blank query. Right click, advanced editor. Here in the hash table, first we say type table, then we give a record. The record contains the data type also. Now here, previously we have not mentioned the data type. Here we are mentioning order ID is number, customer ID is number, item is text, price is number, and then giving list of list. So the only thing is first argument we have changed, and the first argument we are giving type table. We are telling the record where we are telling the column name and the data type, and then we are giving list of list. Let's click on done. Again, you got the table. Let me add one more query here, blank query. In this query, let's take an example of list of records. So new source, blank query, right click, advanced editor. The source equals to list. And inside the list, we have records. So list of records, what we are trying. And inside the record, as usual, the column name, the value. Column name and value, let's click on done. We got list of records. We can convert this into table, expand the records, and can get our full table. Now we will look at an example where we wanted to create a table from record. So let's create one more query. Home, new sources, blank query, right click, advanced editor. And so here what we are doing is in the source we are giving table from records. This is the function. And inside this function we are giving a list of records. That's what we have to give. Every list has records. Every record has columns and the values. Different data type and different names can be there. Another record. and one more record. We can have as many records as we want. Then you click on done. Now you have learned how can we create numbers, text, list, records, table, table from records, table from list, and so many things. Now we have to learn few more things. For few things, you cannot simply write down a value. Let's take an example of date. How are you going to write down dates? Let's add a blank query and right click Advanced Editor. For some of those, we have shortcut hash functions. Like for date, we have hash date. You've seen hash table, we have hash date here 2024 01 01. Click on done. You got a date. Similarly, right click Advanced Editor, you can date time. Now you can have 6 argument 14 0. Click on done. You have date time. And you can check with the data type, it is showing now date time. And then it is giving option for date separation, time separation. Now let's create duration also. New query. Right click Advanced Editor. Hash duration. And these are all small. Typically it is case sensitive and you will always find the functions names are in title case like table.record and all those. But here is all small when it is coming with hash. Hash table, hash date time, hash duration. In duration you can give first day, then hour, minutes, seconds. Click on done. And you got a duration. Now you, before to create a list of duration or list of time, you can right click, go to Advanced Editor, give angular bracket, and in the angular bracket, multiple of them. Click on done. Get the list of duration, we can create table from it. These are some of the basic functions and operation you must remember. Now before I tell you a little bit more about some of the functions which could be really useful, I would like to import one file again and show you what are the steps which file creates. And again, for that, I'm going to take out our favorite file, case data used in videos. By bringing this file, we would like to understand what all steps is going to create. I'll bring in the sales data used in video again. So new source, web, give the URL, click on OK. And we don't need to bring in all the sheet, we can bring in one sheet. Let's bring in customer. Click on OK. And there was no load button or transform button this time because we are in Power Query. So we are going to get each here only. We are not interested in what is coming here on the table view. We are more interested in right click Advanced Editor, and what is happening here is basically there is a let. This is the first step where we are getting the Excel sheet. Now from the Excel sheet, these ports we are getting the data of sheet, customer sheet, item customer, index sheet, data. So we are getting the sheets data. After that, promote header. And look for what promote header is referring. It is referring to the customer sheet. What customer sheet is referring? Is referring to source, the function which is being used on for. And we have change type. Change type, if you see, it is referring to the promoted headers, which is the last step. And finally, the page type is the one which is getting written. So in this manner, what is happening here is basically each step you are getting a data, and next step is that transformation to the next level. What we think in such cases that every time it is referring to the last step, but that is not completely true. Sometime it may happen, just like we have done in our older example, that it can refer to the previous step or previous to previous step. We might have a couple of steps, and after that the output will be used in another step. So those combinations are also possible. Most of the time what happens, it is table at the each step. So what we think is it is table in the first step, it is table which is carrying on the next step it is table, and then furthermore table. Table is referring to the last step which is table and again giving us table. But that is not completely true. Just like any other programming language, we can have steps which can have different kind of variables, and those can be combined to create a resultant. And because finally we want a table for analysis, that is why most of our Power Query final output would be a table. Now there are functions where we will be able to loop the functions which will allow you to loop through each row of the table. There are functions which allow you to loop through each element of the list, and using those functions you will be able to create loops or able to process row by row data. So just like any other programming language, we have a lot of things which we can use here, but in this series and video we might not be able to cover everything, but we'll try to give you an overview which would help you to use other functions. Let's also understand what are Power Query functions. So to understand that, let's go back to the file which we are right now already in progress. And in this file, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the home tab, new query, blank query, and inside that blank query, let me create a function. Let me go ahead and do right click, advanced editor. And I want to create a simple function. Function which is going to do is my function, or I can give it as any name. I don't need source in that case. I need to return this my function. So let me call it addition, fn, addition function. What addition function equals to the parameters x and y, and what the operation they should do. X and y are actually summing up this. You can do any other complex operation. Now let's return this addition function. Done. Let's rename this query also. Now if you want to test, you can give here, let's say 3 and 4 and use invoke, and it will give you answer as 7. And it has actually created a new query. If you see, when you use invoke, right click, advanced editor, it has actually created source addition function. This is the query name. Please remember, if your query name is different from your function name, you have to use the query name. Query name, not the function name. So whenever you're creating the function, make sure your function name and query name is same so that you don't get confused between two. So addition function 3, 4 and it is. So instead of I go ahead and doing that, it has created that. So you could have done that blank query, it tested it, or you can use this function now in any other query which you are doing. So in this manner, you can create functions which you can actually use in your other operation. So let's take one more example of the function. Go to Home tab, source, blank query, and in this blank query, advanced editor, let's use source as a function equals to a, comma, b goes to a, ampersand, space, ampersand, b. So if you remember what we have written in the past, and let's call this append function. Append a capital fn append function. Let's create an append function. Both C control V, return append in the in. Now we got an append function. Rename this query as append function. And let's give A as Microsoft, B as Power BI. Let's use it. So Microsoft Power BI, it has created a query for us and which is giving us the result. In this manner, you can create Power Query function which can do some complex transformation or solve some kind of operation, and you can call those functions into other queries. This is a brief overview of Power Query functions. Power Query offers you tons of functions which you can use to improve your transformation. These functions include list function, table function, record function, text function, number function, etc. Now it is not possible to cover all of these functions in this series and video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover some of these functions. In this particular video, I will cover some basic list function which can help you understand how to perform list operation, and based on that you can go ahead and perform more operations by looking at the documentation of different functions. Most of these functions are covered on my channels in the beginner tutorial series. You can go ahead and learn from there. Every function is fit for a purpose, and if you are able to learn most of these functions, you will be able to perform many transformations with ease. Let's jump back to the Power BI. And the first thing which I would like to do here in Power BI file is I would like to click on close and apply. And once that is done, means the data is loaded, I will save this file. And once this file is saved, we will go back to the Power Query and start doing some list transformations. Data loading is done. Now time has come that we save this file. Let me click on the save icon on the left top. Give this file name as end-to-end14 and click on the save button to save this file. So let's go back to the Power Query using transform data, and here now we will try to learn some list operations. Home tab, new source, blank query, right click on the new query, open advanced editor, and in advanced editor we are going to create a list inside the angular brackets. Let me create list of numbers by giving 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 3 and 4. Don't want to give it in the order so that later on I can showcase you list.sort. Let's click on done. I got a list. Now what I can do is I can open this advanced editor again. Here on this step or on the next step I can do this list dot. Well, there are so many operations. List dot. I have sum, I have count, I have min, max, all those functions are there. Let me use list dot sort to sort this list. First, let's try list dot sort. And in this function, I have to give list. Only one argument it takes, that's the list. List is something which we have in the angular bracket. Let's click on done. And as you can see, the list is sorted in a proper order. Instead of going back here and seeing the list, I can use list.sum. And you will see I get a sum. Now it is returning a number, it's not no more a list. Similarly, I can try list.max here. Will give me maximum of the list, 7 is max. You try min, list.min. Min function, you come here, the list.min, it gives list. Default as any comparison criteria, all those arguments you can give. We will get the minimum value from the list, that is 1. So we are getting 1. So we have something known as count also. We can use count, list.count. Let's see what our argument it need the list argument, and it will return us 7. Now let's go ahead and add one more list item so that it gives us 8 and we are able to differentiate between the max and the count. Now we are interested in couple more operations, and those operations are one which will allow us to loop through the list and do additional operations. Let me add blank query for that. New source, blank query. Right click, open advanced editor, and we are now going to learn the function list.number. List.number needs 3 arguments. First argument is basically start. So from where we want to start. So I want to start with 1. How many numbers you need? 100, and increment by, which is I want 1 in this case. So it will give me 1 to 100 numbers. So this is a continuous number series. In case you want an odd number series, what you can do is you can increment by 2 and it will become an odd number series, and it is going to give you 100 numbers. It is count, total numbers you need, not like your generate series where 1 to 100 is start and end limit. This is not the limit, this is the count. Now in case you want even number series, then you can start with 2. For odd number series, you can start with 1. Let's start with the first argument 2, 100 numbers I need, and then increment by 2, and this will give me now even number series, a list of 100 even numbers starting from 2. There are more such functions, so let's go to the new source, blank query, right click, advanced editor, and here we are going to now use list.dates. It can generate list of dates that will help us to create calendar. But we do have the functions like list.datetime. We do have list.duration that can give us continuous duration. But at this time, we will focus at list.dates. So list.dates would require 3 arguments. The first argument is date. For that, I'm going to use shortcut hash date. It again requires 3 argument year, which is 2022, month 01 and day 01, comma, the count of dates. I need 365 dates almost for an year, and the duration, again, I'll use the shortcut function hex duration, and in the duration, the first argument is day, and because I require a date table, I'll use 1. Then hour, minutes and second, I'm going to use 0, and I'll click on done, and this will give me a series of dates which will help me in creating the date table. So I am now getting continuous dates to create a date table. We also have another powerful function list.generate, which we can also use. So let's start again with a new query, home tab, new source, blank query, right click, advanced editor, and here we are going to use the powerful function list.generate, list.generate, and it requires 3 arguments, and all 3 are functions: the initial function, the condition function, and the next function. So what is the first argument? The first argument is a function without any parameters, goes by means the arrow, and the value which I want to give to this function is a static value of 10 to start with. The next argument is condition, and the condition is each underscore greater than 0. Here generate is creating a loop, and each is giving us each value to compare and take a decision. Third argument is increase, and how we will give it? Each underscore minus 1 means from each row subtract the 1 value. That will give us reducing list. So generate function generate a list of values using provided function. The initial function generates the starting candidate value, which is then tested by the condition. If the candidate value is approved, then it's returned as a part of the resulting list, and the next candidate value is generating by passing the newly approved value to the next. So we have an initial value of 10 tested every time for greater than 0, and every value is reduced for -1 to generate a list of values. And let me click on done, and now we are getting values from 10 to 1, decreasing by 1 in each row. If you want an increasing number list, you can start with 1 and say underscore less than 100, and then we can change the increment by +1, each underscore +1. Here the underscore represent the value in each time we are calculating it. Each time we are looping, that value is the underscore value where we are adding the 1. We got a list of number using list.generate function this time. So we have understood few list functions. We have tons of list functions that include list.sum, min, max, count, contains all, distinct, date time, duration, intersect, distinct, last and matches all. There are so many functions which we can discuss, but it is not possible to discuss all of them as part of this video or series. What you can do is you can watch beginner tutorial series on the channel and can take advantage of all of these functions discussed there. There are other Power Query functions which deal with date, number, text, table, record, etc.
Let us learn some text function in Power Query, and to do that, let's go back to the same file again, the file end-to-end 14, and I have already opened Power Query in that.
In that file, we have created the list of dates using the list functions, which I have explained in the previous video already.
What I'm going to do is, first of all, let me call it as dates list, and now let me convert this into a table. Now to convert this into a table, we'll automatically add a step, and that step is nothing but list from table. So this is the table function which use source, which is basically a list, splitter.split by nothing, null, extra values, error. So these are the things which has to be provided.
Table from list Power Query function help us to convert a list into table with required arguments.
This list has been converted into a table. Let me rename this as date.
Also, let me change data type by clicking on the left top of the column where ABC is written and change it to date. You can observe that the data type is date now. To start this journey, first of all, I'll convert this date into the text, and we will use some text part functions to get different parts of the date. We have text function which are text.start, text.middle and text.end to take out different parts from a text. So let's start this journey by creating a new column using the custom column. So add column, new custom column, and let's create a text date column. To achieve this, we are going to use the function date.toText. So that function will convert the date into a text date, and the first argument which we supposed to give is the date column, comma, and the second argument is the format which we are going to give into the double quotes y 4 times, double M that would be in the capital and DD in the small. So this is the format we supposed to give. Our query is case sensitive, so check out the documentation when to give capital letter and when to give small letters in the format. Click on OK and check the data. So let's scroll down into the data and check it out. Let's scroll down to another month and check. Yes, this format is correct. So the format which we have used here is 4Y in the small, 2M in the capital and 2D in the small. And this has worked for this use case. Data type is any as of now, and we need to change it. Now to change, what I'm going to do is this add column function itself, I will go and give the third argument. So comma, the third argument needs a type. So here I am going to give text dot type. So it's going to give the text data type, and once I give this argument, I will press enter. This argument has corrected the data type. In the same manner, you can give number.type or int64.type to correct your data type as per the need for the required column. We will start the process of converting this text into date. For that, we will require a date function, and we will also require the test function to take out the start, middle and the end part. We might also require conversion of text into integer. Click on add column, custom column to create a new column. And I'm going to call this new column as date1. So let me replace the name with the date1. In this one, I'll use hash date function first of all, which takes 3 arguments: year, month and day. First argument is year. For that we need the first 4 characters. So for that we are going to use the function text dot start. Now the first argument in this function, we need to give the text date. So we will give text date as the first argument, comma, we need 4 characters, so we need to give 4, and then we can close the parenthesis. So the next argument which we are going to use is text dot middle, and in the text dot middle we need 3 argument. So the first argument which we need to use in the text dot middle is the text date. Then we need the starting point, which is 5 in our case, the 4 characters of year and hyphen, and then the next character to start because it start from 0. So 5. We need 2 characters of month, so 2. Close parenthesis, comma. We need day in the last argument. So the function we are going to use here is text dot end to get the last 2 character in the string. So the first argument here is going to be the text date, and then we need 2 characters from the end, so we are going to give 2, and then we will close the parenthesis, and then we got the date. Now we can click on OK to check it out. It is giving error. The reason it is giving error is because we need the 3 arguments as whole number or integers, but all the 3 arguments what we have given are the text. So what we need to do is we need to convert this text into the number, the start, the middle and the end. For that we have function number from text. Let's use the function number from text on all the 3 arguments. I have knowingly given a space after the parenthesis because when we try to select the function, sometimes it replaces the existing function if you don't give the space. So this function number from text we need to use on all the 3 arguments to convert them into the number so that the date function can use them. Once we completed our formula, you can see that we got all the dates correctly. Now the dates are displayed. Currently my format is the US date formats, and based on that format the dates are displayed. In case you are using the UK or Australia format, you will get the date into that default format. Are some of the basic text function which we have used here, but there are many text function, and I have covered quite a few of them on my channel in different videos which you can go ahead and explore. Some of the functions which were available at part of the menus are also available as function, so that we can do complex transformation by using those individual functions, and we will continue to explore these functions in different videos. We have created a date table index in the past. Now time has come that we create the date table in Power Query. We have learned some of the Power Query function, and time to learn some new functions to create the date table. Our DAX Power Query table is pretty comprehensive, and we can create such a comprehensive table using Power Query also, or even more comprehensive by using additional functions. So let's begin our journey of creating the date table in Power Query. I'm going to jump on the existing file which we have created, end-to-end team, and 14. I'll go to the transform data, which will open the Power Query module. I would like to add a new query, so I'll go to Home tab, New Query, Blank Query, and this will add a blank query. I would now like to rename this. So right click and rename is one option, double click and you will go inside the query and you can rename it. I will rename it as date table and press enter, and let me open the advanced editor now. First of all, we will define 2 dates because we wanted to have a calendar between 2 dates. But the function which we plan to use, list.dates, does not take two date arguments. It take a date argument and number of days. So we need to learn how do we take the difference between two dates to provide to this particular function. So first let's start with the start date. Start date as a variable equals to a value. This is how you define a variable here. So start date equals to hash date. Hash date function requires three arguments. The first argument it requires is year, second is month, third is day. So first argument I'm going to give is 2018, which is year, 01 is the month, 01 is the day. Close parenthesis, give a comma and go to next line to start new variable. Now let's define underscore end date equals to hash date 2012 is the year, comma 12 month, comma 31 as a day. The next step is to get the list of dates. For that we are going to use list.dates function. So let's define a variable underscore date equals to list.dates. Now list.dates function requires three arguments. First argument is the start date. Second argument is count, means number of days. Third argument is step, means how many days it should jump between each list items. So I am going to give the start date as the first argument which we have created some time back. So the first argument is underscore start date. For the second argument we need number of days, the count, and that can come from the difference of end date minus start date, which is pretty easy in Power Query, but that returns us duration, not days. So let me define a new variable underscore diff which will contain the difference of these two dates. So underscore diff equals to underscore end date minus underscore start date, and this will return me the difference between 2 days in duration. Now I need to use a function duration.days to get the days out of this duration. Now I will get number of days between these two dates using this function, plus 1 to cover up the subtraction difference to get the exact days. Back to the list.dates, let's give the second argument which is underscore diff, number of days or count. Third argument is the step which is required in duration. So we are going to use a function hash duration which can provide us the duration. So function hash duration require 4 arguments. The first argument is day, and that is what is most important for us. So 1 day, 0 hours, 0 minutes and 0 seconds, and now we are done. This is the last step in our course. So copy this and return it using the in. So in underscore date is going to return the list of dates. Let's click on the create to complete this query. Now we got the required list of date. We can scroll and check it out. All the dates are available here. We can sort it descending to see what is the end date which we wanted. But every time we do anything, it adds a step. As we don't need this step, I am going to remove it by pressing on the cross button. Let's convert this list into the table. So right click, advanced editor, and then we will enter here underscore date table. Was the last step. It was giving error, means last step was not closed. So now let's use table from list function. What I've done is actually I copied it from the last one. So table from list. Now last step is dates, list of dates which I need. List of dates. Then splitter dot split by nothing. That's because we don't want to split. Null extra values dot error. That is the argument which it needs. So the main argument is list, and then splitter dot split by nothing. There is a way we need to split this list. We want to give that, we can use, but here we don't want to specify anything. So we are giving other two arguments. We are giving nothing and then extra value error. And let's return this. Now if I still return the date, it will not convert it into a table. Let's return a date table. Click on create. Few things we have to change. So first of all, using the left top corner, change the data type to date. So data type of this column should be date. So let's convert that into date. Now double click inside the column to rename it. Rename it to date. Date table required many columns which I am going to add now one by one. To do that, we can use the add column tab. Inside the add column, we have custom column that I am going to use again and again to add new columns whenever I need a new column in this table. So let me add the first column by clicking on custom column. The column I want to add is start of month, means I want to get the first date of the month. We have a function available for that. The function is date dot start of month, and this function start of month require only one argument, that is date, and based on that it can give us the start date of the month. One argument is needed to give us the start of the month or the first date of the month. Let's press OK. So we got a new column start of month which is giving us the first date of the month. We need to correct the data type of this, so we can add the third argument to the add column, and there we can use date dot type. It requires a type to convert it into the correct type, and let's press enter to get the correct data type. Let's quickly add one more column, and the column this time I would like to add is end of month. I want to get the last date of the month. Very simple function, date dot end of month, which requires only one argument, that is date, which I'm going to provide it. Close the parenthesis, and now I can get end of month date. Let's press OK to get it. The data type of this column is also not correct, and as you know, we need to add the third argument. Let me copy it from the previous column and add it as the third argument, comma date dot type, to get the correct data type. So data type is corrected. Time has come to add more columns. Add the new column, and the new column is start of quarter, means the first date of quarter is what we need here. So function we are going to use is date dot start of quarter. Very simple function. It also required only one argument, and that argument is date. So we'll provide the date argument, close the parenthesis, and this function will going to give us the start of the quarter date. Click on done to get the new column. The new column is the start of the quarter date, and now I would like to add one more column, and the column will be end of quarter, means the last date of quarter. Let's quickly add a new column, end of QTR, means end of quarter, and we are going to use a function date dot end of quarter. Again, this function require only one argument, and that argument is date. So let's provide the date argument and click on OK to get the new column. So now let's look at the data. Look at the very first row. We are getting the start of the month and end of the month, start of the quarter and end of the quarter for that particular given date. We scroll down, go to another month. We are getting different start of the month and end of the month, but as of now we are getting the same quarter start date and same quarter end date. If we scroll down further till the April month, we will be able to see a different start of the quarter and end of the quarter. So for the two dates you can compare, the quarter is also changing. Let's go ahead and add start of year and end of year. So first I'm going to add start of year, and the function I'm going to use for that is date dot start of year. Unlike the DEX function, which can take a second argument for the financial start date, the date dot start of year function only takes one argument, that is date, and it always gives you the calendar year start date. It doesn't take the second argument. Let's press OK to get the new column. You can scroll and validate the different years which you have got, but the easier way is the click on the down arrow and see all the values you can use. Press cancel to come out. Let's add one more column, and this time we are going to add end of year. The function which I'm going to use here is date dot end of year. So date dot start of year I copied. I'm going to change it to end. Again, this function also take only one argument. It doesn't take end of year argument. So let's press OK to complete. You got end of year. You can just click on the values and use load more. See all the end of year. For financial year, we have to write down a manual code. So we can write down manual code. So I'm going to tell you how to write down. FY start.
Want a financial year that starts in April. What does that mean? That means that if the date of the month is less than 4, then the year is started in the last year. Otherwise, the year has started in the current year. And I'm going to use all these things inside the hash date function. So in the first argument, I will have the logic for the year. The second argument would be month, which is 4, and the third argument day, which is 1. This means any date between 1st April and 31st March of the next year will have the same start date of 1st April of this year. So let's start coding the formula with if. And after if we don't require parentheses, if date dot month, I want a financial year which starts from April. So if it is less than 4, it means the year was started in the last year. Then my year started in the last year, isn't it? So date dot year of date, only one argument it takes, is -1, else the date of year is the date of year. So if it is 4 months and above, it is the same year where the year has started. Only year logic. How would I convert this into date? For that, I am going to use the hash date function. In hash date, the first argument is year, which we already sorted out, comma 4, comma 1. And we copy this and click on OK. Now you got the year which is starting, financial year. Now how do you get the end date? Almost similar formula. Go to the custom column and FY and date of the same formula, but the thing here is year, if it is less than 4, it is ending in the same year. But if it is greater than 4 or greater than or equal to 4 plus 1, it is going to end in the next year, and that is not 4/1, it is 3/31. So it is going to end in the next year if it is 4 month or onwards. If it's April, which is my start of year, I am going to get my financial year end in the next year, March. Before April, whatever months are there, they are ending in this year only. March of this year. Let's click on OK to get the new column. Time to focus on week columns. We will create start of week, and for that we also have a function. Let's start with a new column, start of week, and we are going to use a date function, date dot start of week. It takes 2 arguments. The first argument it takes is a date column, and the second argument is how do you want to start your week. 0 means Sunday, 1 means Monday, and so on. Click on OK to add the column. So you got the Sunday as the starting point. Let's do Monday, because 1st January 2018 is a Monday. And when we go give 1, it's got a Monday start. So I would like to add another column, and this column should provide me a weekday number. So let's add a column, and this column I am going to rename as day of week. I am going to use the function date dot day of week, and this function can take up to 2 arguments. The first argument it take is a date. As of now, let me create this column with only 1 argument. So it is giving me the values. 1 means Monday and 0 means Sunday. If needed, I can go ahead and change this by providing the additional argument into this function. So it returns us 0 as Sunday, 1 as Monday, and if you don't want, you can actually go ahead and change it by providing another argument. But I think we are fine with that. But what we can do is we can give the names also. So there is a function to get the name also. We'll go to add columns, custom column. Just create the column weekday name. This column is going to return us weekday name. The function which we are going to use is date dot day of week name, and day of week name function takes 1 argument, that is date, and using this argument it is going to return the weekday name. So let's click on OK. And now we are getting the weekday name like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and as you can see 1st January 2018 is starting from Monday. Same way, end of week is also very simple. So let's add a new custom column for end of week. Add column, custom column, and let's rename this column as end of week. And the function which we are going to use for this is date dot end of week, and this function can also take 2 arguments. The first argument is date,
comma, the second argument is 1, means the week will start on Monday and end on Sunday. So it is ending on the Sunday, the 7th January. This means we have having a week from Monday to Sunday. This was a little difficult in DAX some time back, but now we have arguments which is making it simple in DAX also. Now we are all sorted on the start dates and end date of month, quarter and year as well as week. Time has come that we start creating the formatted column, and I am going to start with a column which is going to give me month year in the text format. So month year, and I'm going to use date dot to text function, and it can take two arguments. The first argument is date and the second argument is the format, and here the format is going to be MMM in capital 3M and then 4YYYYY. This is going to give me a format like Jan-2018. So let me click on OK. And we got January, February, March, April. This will not sort because as we know, we need a sort column. If we have a month year in a format Jan, Feb, March, it doesn't understand that. So we always need sortable format. So we'll go to the custom column again. We need a month year sort also. So month, year, sort. How do we get that? Now we need date dot year. We'll get the year of the date. We multiply it by 100. To that we add date dot month. Again, this one takes one argument, that is date, and it's going to provide me the month number. This combination is going to create a sortable month year, which can be used as a sort column for the month year name, which is in text format. In the same manner, you can also add the quarter details using the functions available for the quarter in Power Query. So you have seen, how easy it is also in Power Query. If you know these date functions, you can simply go ahead and create a table. Now there are many other things which are available in date functions, like is current day, is current month, is current quarter, and those can help you in creating this quarter, this month, this year. Those help you to create the columns which help you in defaulting the current month, current quarter and current year into the slicer. Now you have learned some basic date functions using which you can create the date table. But the date function does not stop here. Power Query provides you a lot of date functions which you can use to enrich your date table and do many other operations which are required. I have discussed quite few of them on my channel in different videos, so you can go ahead and watch those videos and enhance your skills around the date functions and solve many other Power Query problems using the date functions.
How can we convert a single table into a star schema? Now this single table is the very common file which is available on my GitHub account, which is beginner tutorial series file, which I have also used in my beginner tutorial. This is the retail file which is having the entire data in one single file, and you wanted to know how can we convert into a star schema. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the video which I've recorded for that particular series so that you can take the advantage here also on the YouTube. The purpose of this video is to convert the single file into a star schema. So first of all, let me explain you that Excel file which we have. So this is the file which is known as retail data or beginner tutorial file. This file contains order ID, order number, order date, which are the order attributes. Then it has a dimension which is a part of this table only, which is item ID, item number, category, subcategory, subcategory and brand. Then I have unit price, which is the sales price, quantity, how much we have sold, discount percentage, it is actual discount percentage, so we don't have to divide it by 100. Then we have gross sales, discount, net sales, which is known as sales, unit cost, the cost which you are paying for this item. Then we have requested date, delivery date. This also contains the geography item attribute, which is city, state, region and location ID, but not all four can be a part of a single dimension. It also has some single column dimensions like order type, payment method and customer ID. So using this single Excel sheet, we can do the complete analysis on Power BI. But we know the star schema works best on Power BI. So what we are going to do is we are going to convert this single file into a star schema, and I'm going to showcase you all the steps for that. What we have done so far is we have learned some basic Power Query transformation. Now time has come that we apply those transformation onto a data set, and this data set is basically a single table. And this single table we wanted to break into a star schema. So how to do the various transformation to convert this table into a star schema? And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the GitHub, and from the GitHub I'm going to take this file for beginner tutorial series youtube.xls. Again, I already opened that file, and I'm now going to right click on the raw, copy link. I'll take this link and I'll go back to Power BI. Power BI, I'll click on get data, web, give this URL, click on OK. It will show me only one sheet, and I'm going to pick up that particular sheet. And after that, I will click on transform data. This will open the data onto the Power Query mode, and we can directly transform it without loading it. This data is a very special data because all the attributes, whether they are dimension or measures, are available in one single table. I want to create fact and dimension out of this single table. I'll tell you what all this table contains. This particular data is having order ID, order date, item ID, category, subcategory, subcategory, brand, unit price, quantity, discount percentage, unit cost, quantity, state, region, location ID, order type, payment method, and customer. I want to create multiple dimension tables out of it. But how can I do that? So what happens when I want to create a dimension on a single stuff like order type or payment method, then I do have options like, add as a new query on a single column. But I do not have similar option for multiple columns. For that, we need to explore the option of duplicating the table. To do that, I can right click on the sheet, and I have two options, duplicate and reference. So duplicate will duplicate, and it will take whatever steps has been performed till now. It is just duplicate this code. And after that, there is no connection between the two tables. But what would happen in case of reference? It's going to create a reference, but it will have the reference to this table, be sheet 1, whatever it is. So the advantage of reference is it's going to load the data for once, and then it's going to process rest of the things. But in case of duplicate, because it's going to load the data again and again, so every time you take it, it will load the data for all the duplication you have created. So if you have created 4 duplicates, it is going to load the data 4 times. Let me show you what happens when I create a duplicate copy. So if you see the duplicate copy, if you see in the sheet 1, look at the steps in the sheet 1. And go and look at the steps in the sheet 2 also. They are same. And if you click at the source, you will see it is getting data from the same place. But now if I right click and use reference, you will see that it is referencing the sheet 1. But the disadvantage with that is if I go ahead and do, let's say, one operation here. Let's say if I go back and create the gross column, which we are always creating. So I go and create a custom column, and let me call it as gross amount. So this gross amount equals quantity multiply by unit price. Click on OK to add. Gross amount is available here in the sheet 1, but if I go to sheet 3 and you scroll, you also see gross amount. It's a reference table. It's going to get everything. So to avoid this, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do anything with the sheet 1. So let me delete whatever I've created. So I'm deleting the queries. I'll go to the sheet 1. I'll also delete the edit column. Let me rename it as sales underscore base. I'm not going to do anything with this table. I want to create item tables, but for that, what I'm going to do is I need these fields: item, category, subcategory, subcategory, and brand. That constitute my item table. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a reference table. Our reference table is created now. Let me rename it as item. So item query has been created, which is going to become item table. I'll select item ID, category ID, subcategory ID, and brand. Shift and click. Now all these columns are selected. I'll right click and I'll use remove other columns. Remove whatever other columns are there other than what I've selected. Post that, I click on item ID or click here on the corner, and after that I can use remove duplicates. Now it will remove duplicates for the table, and now what I need to check here is, am I getting the distinct item IDs or not? Because if item ID is not distinct, then it's not going to become my primary key. So what I'm going to do here is, I'll go here to the view, and here let me add column distribution, and you see 1000 distinct and 1000 unique. Let me click on the bottom and use entire data set. And you can see 2644 is unique and distinct. It means item ID is my primary key or unique key. I don't need index column for uniqueness. I can use item ID to join with my fact table. Let's add another dimension now. Again, I go back, I duplicate this using reference, and let me call it as geography. And in geography, I want to bring the columns city, state, region, and location. I selected all of them, right click, remove other column. I click on the top corner and I'll use the option remove duplicates. And let's wait for the location IDs stats. Here you see there is a problem. And the problem is there are only 75 unique, but there are 299 distinct. It means it's not a primary. The cities are 71 unique. There is some problem, and the problem is caused by the region column. It is not allowing us to get the location ID as unique column. Let's go to the remove other columns tab, and from there we will remove region as a column. And once we remove this region as a column, we can press enter and check for the results. And once we go to the remove duplicates tab, we will see that now location ID will become a primary key or a unique key. And now you can see 299 distinct and 299 unique. It means location ID can be used as a primary key or unique key, and it can also be used as a join column to join with the fact table. Two dimension tables are done, and now I can go back and look at the data. Now I'm not bothered about order ID and order date, but I would like to create some single column dimension. So let's go ahead. I'll tell you how to create dimension for order type and payment method. For order type and payment method. Now these tables don't have their own IDs also. So I need ID also. And region also, one of the contender is region. So right click on this and add as a new query. Now again, when I add as a new query, it's going to take all these steps. So this is what I don't want. So I don't want this. This is one of the best method to do it. But again, you see that all the steps are repeated. This is what we don't want. So we go ahead and remove this, and instead of that, we'll only go to the reference, and there we'll select one column, let's say region in this case, remove other columns, and then simply because it's only one column, we can remove duplicates by clicking on the column. Duplicates are removed. Now here I want to have an ID column, and that ID column I again want back in my fact table whenever I go to create a fact. So what I'm going to do for that? So I'm going to add index column. Go to add column, and there index column starting from 1, I added an index. The same exercise I need to repeat for order type and payment method. But right now I'll just keep it till this example. Let me call this table as region. So now what I want to do is, now this region has a new ID and I would like to populate it back. And then I'll get the payment ID, then I'll get the order type ID. I would like to populate those all. Let's start working on the fact table. So first of all, let's go to the sales base. You click on the sales base, you go to the home tab, we'll use merge queries. Merge queries is new, and I'm going to create a fact table now. And here I'm going to join with the region base. The join would be the region column, region to region. It would be a left outer join. Always prefer an outer join in the favor of the base table. Ideally, it should match everything unless we have null values. So let me go ahead and click on OK now. When you scroll on the right, you see there is a table now. Expand that, uncheck this use original column, and we should have renamed this index column. We have not renamed, so we are going to rename it here now. So let me add this index column, and let me call this index column as region ID. Now this I can use to join back with my region table. I will go back into the region table and also try to rename index as region ID. Now once I rename it as a region ID, the step which we have already added into the merge table might not work as expected. So we might have to edit the merge step. I click on the setting and I replace it with region ID. It is giving me a question mark, so I don't want that question mark to continue here, and I'll delete this rename column. And now you can see the question mark has been removed. I got the correct name region ID. Now I would like to rename this merge one table as my sales fact table. How do I add the other things? Let's say if I want to have payment, how do I going to add the payment ID here? Am I going to create another version of this table, or I'm going to merge with this? So I'm going to merge with this. So let's take one example. I will go back to the sales base table, right click, and create one more reference of it. You go to the payment method, right click, remove other columns, then again right click, remove duplicates, then go to add columns, add index column from 1, and let's call it payment method ID. Now I need this ID in my sales fact. Before that, let's call this table as payment method. Now we want to merge the payment method with sales fact. So what we are going to do here is, we'll click on the sales fact, go to the home tab. Now instead of merge queries as new, I'm going to use merge queries. Inside the merge queries, we will bring in the payment method query also, and we'll click on payment method, and this again is going to be a left join. Click on OK, scroll till the right. Now you can see payment method appearing as a column, and the column contains table which we need to expand. Expand that. We only need the payment method ID. We're going to take that, click on OK. Our fact is ready. Now our facts and dimensions are ready, and I'm going to click on close and apply. And it is evaluating all the tables So you can see it started running the query for sales base, item, geography, creating connections, loading data to the model, and the sales base table is loading, and respective other tables which are dependent on that are also getting the data. The sales fact is still not loaded because it is dependent on all other tables like payment method, region. Now it started loading, and you might have seen that sales base is not moving at all, and dependent fact table can load. You might have also seen that other tables were not loading as many rows as the sales base table, and this is the advantage of taking the reference. Now we'll go to the model view because I would like to show you how to create a model in such scenario. So because we have the setting of detecting the relationship, it has detected the relationship, but those relationships are not correct. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete those relationships and I'm going to create all the relationship again. One thing which I'm also going to do here is I'm going to hide the sales base. I don't want to see that table now. I'm not needing that. So I close the I here so it will be hidden. Now sales fact is my main table. Payment method, geography, item are around it. So how do we want to connect item ID with item ID? Where is our item table? So item ID, drag item ID on the item ID. Sales fact item ID equal to item ID, many to one, single directional join. It is already suggesting that. So let's do that. Then we will create region ID to region ID, again many to one, single directional. Then we have payment method to payment method. This should be one to many, single directional because we drag from the payment method side. And now we want to connect with location ID. So location ID to location ID, one to many, single directional. Click on save. So now we got all our joins sorted out. This is the schema which has been created. Let's save this file. So this is the star schema we have created from a single file. And this is very similar to what we were creating using sales data used in video or sales data used in Fabric file. That was a perfect star schema and the 4 tables were given. But here we have transformed to create a star schema. It has almost similar kind of column. The discount percentage here is actual discount percentage. So you don't need to divide it by 100. You can create column in Power Query. You can create column index. You have the additional dimension which are coming in order type, customer. You can also enhance those. Like in customer, you can add the customer name as appending of customer ID, like customer space the ID. That what you can create either index or power. These are few of the things which you can do and create the schema and try out everything which we have done during this series or video and repeat that on this particular data model. And this data is much better data. And just to give an example in visualization, if you go here and bring it from the item brand, you see some of the actual brand names which has been created in this data, and that is why I always say this data is much better data than the data which we have. It do have a lot of variety. I do have a better version of this data which contain little bit of more data, and for that you can ping me in the comments. I can give you a Dropbox link. From there you can take this file and load it. So this is the way you use the Power Query transformation to create a star schema. We had one table and from there we created star schema. There are scenarios where you might have a snowflake schema or a relational schema, and from there also you can merge and create star schema. So go ahead and try out those different combinations.
In this video, we are going to discuss how can you append all the Excel sheets available into one table. So the case here is that I have an Excel where I have multiple sheets and all these sheets I want to append into one single table. Even if a new sheet comes in, I would like to put it into the same table. Now, how to get data for this one? So data for this example, which I'm going to discuss, is available at my GitHub account, github.com amitchandrapvi/powerbi. You can get the append sheet.xls. In this video, I'm going to use the download version of this file, but I have told you many times how can you directly connect to this Excel sheet without downloading it. So what you have to do is you have to click on this append sheet.xls, and I'm going to give this URL to you, which is the raw URL, not the on the top. So I'm going to post the URL, which is right click on this, copy link address. So in case you're directly reaching to my GitHub account, you have to open this file and on the raw right click and copy the link, and this is the link you can directly use as the web link in your Power BI desktop or web API link. In that manner, you will be able to directly get this data onto the Power BI without downloading it into your desktop. So let's understand the use case with an example in the Excel sheet, and then we will try it out on the Power BI desktop. So basically what I have these 3 item sheets and I want to combine them. And tomorrow there could be a fourth one. And if there is a fourth one, my requirement is that fourth one should also get combined. So in this case, what will happen is if I try to get the append idea, the normal append idea where I append the table, how do I add the fourth table? Do I need to modify the code again and again? So I need to have some generic solution which can actually help me. So let's go and try out what actually we do in Power BI. So I came to Power BI, and in Power BI what I would like to do is basically I want to import this Excel sheet. So in the center of the Power BI screen, I have this option import Excel. I do have import Excel option here also in the home tab, and under the get data also again I will get it the option. I will use this import option from the middle and select the sheet Append Queries and click on open. Now once I do that, I'll get all the sheets. And what is the usual way is that click on all these 3, check. So when you check, you get you are taking that inside the system, and when you simply click, you are just viewing the data. Instead of using the load data or load, I'll use the transform data because I want to go to Power Query and combine this data, isn't it? That's what I wanted. So let me go to transform data. If I go to transform data, and what usual append method is there, and let me bring the Power Query on this screen. If I want to combine these 3, I need to take the usual append method, isn't it? So I need to go to append queries as new or append queries, and then I need to say 2 or more table, and then I say item 2 and item 3. I click on the add and I do that, and it is going to append all 3 sheets / queries into the item 1 query or table. That's not something which I wanted, because let's go ahead and add something here. Let's go ahead and add a new sheet here. I also want the header, so let me go back and take the rows from the top and paste it here on this sheet. Now I have the header. Let me change the values 41 to 56 and 47 to 57. We can use this sheet. Let's keep everything else same. Now I got one additional sheet. Now if I go and refresh this data, I don't get the sheet 4. So it means there is no benefit of this. So let me do one thing. Let me discard all these changes and do it again. So I discard all the changes. I come out, I say discard all the changes, and I'll do it again. And now also what I need to do is I also need to delete this sheet. Let me delete this sheet and save it. Let me go back and import the Append Sheets Excel workbook again. And this time I'm only going to select item 1 and I'm going to leave out the other sheets. With only sheet 1, I'll click on transform data to reach Power Query and start the transformation again. Because I pressed transform data, I reach Power Query. Now in Power Query, I also remove these steps. Now you can observe that I am seeing all the 3 sheets as my source, and the data is available inside the data column. If I go here, you can see that I see a table, and that the challenge with this table here is basically the headers are not promoted. So I have the table which is having the data, but headers are not promoted. I can expand it. I can expand it here, and you will be very happy to see that all the data is together. But what is happening here is these headers are unnecessary. Then you will say, okay, we can search the column name and then remove those rows and then do it. But what happens, sometime you might have a scenario where the column name which you are taking might also exist in data. So for that, what we are going to do is, if you are follower of the beginner series, you might have remembered we learned function promote headers. And using that function promote header, we can actually do a promote header in a table. What we are going to do is today we are going to use that Power Query function. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the add columns and I'm going to add a new column. Remember here my complete data is available as a table in the data column in each row. And if I click on the empty space, I can preview the data. Always click on the empty space, don't click on the name, otherwise it will add a step. Let me add a new column data1, and inside this data1 column, I will use the function table.promote headers. This function requires one argument, and that argument is the table for which it is going to promote the headers, means going to make the first row as the header. Let me add data column as the argument for this function. I double clicked on the name. So once I double clicked on the name, it also appears. I can also type. it will also come in that case. So either I type, I double click. In both the cases, it will work. So now it's going to create a one more column. I created one more column. Now look at this column. For this column, headers are already promoted for each of the row. As of now, there are too many columns here and I can delete them. I can even delete the data column. So let me select the column which I doesn't require other than the name of the sheet, which I might require for the future references. I have selected all the columns which I don't need, and now I can use the option remove column and remove all these columns from the table. Now I'll go and expand. It is suggesting me all these columns and I say OK. And then I can detect the data type and change it. So now I'm able to expand and get the data together, and my all data is now lying together. The question arises, will it take a new sheet when we add it into the Excel? So let's go back to the Excel and try to add a sheet and see what happens. Let me copy couple of rows for the new Excel sheet and click on the plus button, and I will call this as item 4 sheet, and this item 4 sheet I will add those couple of rows and modify the data. So item ID 56 and item ID 57 I am adding here in the sheet 4. Save it and go back to the Power Query, and now we need to refresh this data. So let me click on refresh preview. You can observe immediately that item 4 and its related data has come. Let's go to the source, and now we can see item 4 there. Item 4 is getting processed in each step after that. It means the data of the item 4 is carried forward without doing any changes in the code of Power Query. If needed, I can correct the data types, or I can simply go ahead and click on close and apply, and I will now get this data into my Power BI desktop, and I can save the file and move on. In our journey to learn Power Query, let's learn Power Query by taking an example, and in this process we are going to learn few Power Query functions. So what we wanted to do here is, we have a text which has certain number comma separating, and we want to create another text where these numbers are sorted. So let me take you through an example. So I have this string where I have 7, 5, 6, 10, 11, 2, 4, 3, 8, 9, 1. So these are just randomly placed here, but I want ascending sorted text. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in a sorted ascending order, but it is a text. In the given order, I want these numbers. So how can I do that? And to do that, what we are going to do is, we are going to go to Power Query and solve this problem. Now to solve this problem, again from this series Learn Power BI, I'm going to take end-to-end 14 PBIX file, and I am here on the Power BI in that file. In that file, I'll go to the Home tab, then I'll go to Transform Data, Transform Data. I have reached Transform Data, and inside Transform Data, I want to add those numbers which I have told you. So I've already copied those numbers. To get those numbers inside a table, I'm going to take help from Enter Data. Now, Enter Data is something which is also available outside Power Query. You might have seen that inside the reporting view also. So let me click on the Enter Data inside the Home tab. It opens up a pop-up. Inside that, I'm going to give that string, and I'm going to name this column text1, and the table is sort text. I'll click on OK. Now this table will get loaded inside the Power Query and will be shown on the left hand side as a query. Now the moment it gets loaded, you can see it is showing a number, and we were never expecting a number, and this is because there is a change data type step which has been added by Power Query, thinking that it's a number, but it's not a number. We know it's a text. We don't want to perform this change data type step, so I'm going to delete this step from the right hand side, and now I got the way I wanted the number without a data type number. So it's a text data type, and this is the correct thing I have. what I wanted to do. First of all, to sort this text into a string, I need it into a list format, because in list I have a function list.sort. Maybe in a table format, but here it is easy to do all the operations in the list. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to add a column. In the tab add column, I'll click on custom column to add a new column. And in this column, I will first of all convert this into a list. So I need the sorted text column. As a first step, I will do this operation, which is text.split. Text.split function can take two arguments and convert a text into a list by splitting it based on the separator. So argument 1 is a text, argument 2 is a separator, and the outcome is a list. So what is my first argument? Text 1, and the second argument is comma, which I am going to give it inside the double quotes. And let me click on OK to get the results. Now you will see that I got a list, and you can see this is the list which I wanted. And always remember, whenever you get these list or table and you want to view them or preview them into the bottom, always click on the empty space. Don't click on the list, because if you click on the list, it will add a step and it will become part of your query, and then you have to revert it to come back. So now it's created that list. So let me delete it. So I'm back at the same place. This is my list. Now I can sort it using list.sort. And once I sort it, you will realize I have one problem. Now onwards, I will keep on putting a function on top of another function to get the desired output. So let's put on top of it the function list.sort. I got the function list.sort. It requires two arguments. The first argument is the list and the second argument is the optional comparison criteria. And you might have realized I have given a space. The reason for giving a space before I selected list.sort is that it should not replace the text.splits. And let me click on OK. So we got a sorted list. Let's have a look at it. So now what we have done is we have used this list.sort function, which can take a list and we can sort it. But you can see this list is sorted in a text format. It is not being sorted as a number, because the list which you have inside is actually a list of text. Text.split converts into a list of text. Then how do I convert them into the number? So it means before I sort it, I need to convert them into a number. So how do I do that? Let's open the formula using the right hand side setting icon. To do that, I need to use another function, and the function I need to use is list.transform. List.transform function can transform the list based on a function. The first argument of this.transform is a list, and second argument is transform function. So what I need to do is I need to use this transform function, and for that I need to loop, and to loop I need to use a keyword which is each, and I can use this each on underscore. But what I want on this underscore, I want to convert this text, each text which is underscore, into a number. So we have a function number from text, and inside that I can use this underscore, which will get converted into the number now. So let's look at it, what we got now. So we got list.transform. The first argument is a list which we created. So the second argument is each, which is the looping function. Number from text. So from the text I am going to get the number, and what is that text, which is underscore, which is the each element of the list. We are closing the list, and let's try to close the list.sort also. No syntax error. Let's click on OK. Now we got the list again. There is no error. So let's click here. Now you can see it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now the list is properly sorted in the numeric order. Now we got a list. So we need to create a comma separated text from that. So now we need a function which can concatenate this list. Let's edit the formula once again. So let's look at one function, text.combine. What does it do? text.combine can take two arguments. First argument is a list which is a text list, and the second argument is a nullable separator. It means the separator which is going to be used when we combine and create a concatenated text. This function returns text. But there is a challenge. It needs a list of text. Let me showcase you what happens if I don't transform this list as of now. The first argument is a list, which is right now a number list, and second argument is a separator, comma, which I have given here. And let's try out, does it work? Does text.combine work on the number list? Click on OK, and it starts giving error. And the reason for the error is the type is not correct. Right now it's a list of numbers. So we need to do the same operation in the reverse manner which we have done some time back. The list.transform previously has transformed this list into a number list. Now the same operation need to transform it into the text. So I have moved down a code little bit so that I can only understand this function. So now here I need list.transform again. So I'm going to use list.transform, and on list.transform, now I need to do operation, which is basically again this each operation, but not from text. I now need to convert into two text. So number to text is the operation I want to perform, and that should close my transform. After transform, a comma, so that I give the second argument of text.combine. So what is happening here is, now this list.transform is going to convert my list, which is already sorted, which is coming from list.sort, into a list of text elements, and then the text.combine can combine it into a comma separated string. So let's click on OK and check it out. Does it work? So now what has happened is we got a comma separated text in which the previous text elements which were comma separated are now sorted. You can see I am getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 as a text which is a comma separated number text, but it is sorted version of the text one. So this is what exactly we wanted to achieve. But while doing this example, we have learned text function and list function which we can use. We also learned how to take advantage of list.transform function, which is very powerful function which allows you to do many transformation. And this is just one example of the transformation where I want to transform each element into a different data type. But you can do many other operations using list.transform. And I have covered these functions as part of my beginner tutorial series with some other examples also. So you can learn more about all these functions using that particular series. Try out this exciting example. How do we make sure that these changes are saved? So we can go to Home, Close and Apply, so that all our changes are part of now Power BI, and we can save this file by pressing Ctrl S or by clicking on the Save button. So let it load the data of the sort text table, and post that we can save it. So I'm saving it, and you have to try this example out. You can create any comma separated text for this video and try it out. One of the best way to learn Power BI or Power Query is to take up some examples and try to solve them. We are going to take one example in this video which is split and distinct. While the example will look very simple to you, but most of the time I found when people try to solve this problem, they take one small step wrong and then they try to solve it by a little different way, which is not so effective. So let me first of all tell you the problem. The problem is basically I have these comma separated text like A, B, C, A, B, C, D, and so on. I have many lines. What I want is across all these rows, I want the distinct codes which are available like A, B, C, D, E, F. So basically what is happening, this is going to be splitted, and after splitting I need distinct. Once I reach Power BI, I'll tell you where when people answer this question, they commit the mistake. So let's try to solve this problem on Power BI. And to solve this problem, I'm going to use end-to-end 14 file, which we are using for the Learn Power BI series. And I am on that particular file right now. In the Home tab, let me click on Transform Data, and inside the Transform Data, I will again click on Transform Data and I'll reach to Power Query. As this is a very simple data, this can be created with enter data. So let me enter this data. So I'll go to the Home tab and click on Enter Data. I will be able to enter this data. A pop-up is open, and here I'm going to rename the column as codes, and I can call this table as code split. Let me start creating the rows for this table by entering the data. Let me start typing A, B, C, and in the next row let me type A, B, C, D. It is not necessary that you type the same stuff what I have given to you. You can have a little different version. That's absolutely fine. So this is the data I have, and let me now click on OK to get this data in Power Query. It will add a query which I'll be able to see on the left hand side, the list of queries where I have, and I will explain you the transformation needed to do that. So I got the table. As soon as I told you this problem, the first answer comes to you, okay, we will split it by delimiter. Yes, that's correct. So you can right click and do split by delimiter, or inside the transform tab you have the option split column by delimiter. So from any of these options, click on that split column by delimiter. In this pop-up you have various options. The first option is how you want to split it. The default option is comma, and we have comma separated string, so we are going to use that, but you can change it. You can even choose a custom one. Second is split at leftmost, rightmost, or each occurrence. In this case we need each occurrence, but depending on the need you can choose. Next option is advanced options, and inside the advanced option there is a choice. If we choose the wrong one, we may get little longer solution. We may still be able to achieve it, but that's not the optimal solution. In this advanced option, I have option split into columns and rows. But usually people tell me that we'll split by columns, and then they tell, we will do unpivot and do that. You don't need to do that. Actually, you have a better option, split into rows, because that will actually convert it into rows. And when you do split by column, it do ask you number of columns. So you're limited by number of columns. In case of row, you are not limited. So if there are 4, 5, 6, any number, it will take care of that split, because it's going to create new rows. After you do that, you have to click on OK. Now we got all the codes into the rows, and the next option is very simple. So I have to right click and use remove duplicates option. Let me click on that, and we got the desired outcome. As you can see, this is the problem which we can solve with what we have learned so far. There is nothing new, but it is just a use case to pay little attention. How are we going to achieve this? I have kept this use case for your reference. You can solve many other different problems by combining various Power Query operations. So try this out. In this video, we will continue our journey of learning Power BI and Power Query with some examples. The example what we want to take here is the split column, but there is a twist. The twist here is that in the column I have two set of values. The one value is a single value, then there is a space, and then there is a comma separated value. I want to split them, but the final answers should contain them in combined manner. So if you look here, the best 1, 2, 4 is going to become best 1, best 2, and best 4. Similarly, good 1, 4 will become good 1 and good 4. So how can we achieve this? Now again, we are going to use some of the things which we have already learned in Power Query, but try to fit in this use case. For this use case also, I am going to use pivotdata.xls, which is available on my GitHub account. and that is the same file we have already loaded in end-to-end 14 PBIX. So we can continue to use that particular file. Those of you who are directly jumping onto this part of the video, you have to go to my GitHub account, github.com/amitchandakpbi/powerbi. You have to go down, you will find a file pivottdata.xls. Click on that. One thing is you can download this and use it, or the second thing is right click on the raw, don't take the URL from the top, and copy link. And that is the link which you can use as web URL in your Power BI to load this data. In this case, I have tried out this operation on a little different file, but you can continue with the file you are already having, the pivottdata.xls file. Let's try this out on Power BI desktop. Pivottdata.xls has undergone many changes over a period of time, but for this use case you should be able to get the data inside the file. But if you don't get, you should be able to create this data easily using the enter data option in Power Query. You should be able to get this data inside the combined split sheet, and as we have discussed the best space 1, 2 and 4, I would like to split like best space 1, then I would like best space 2. They would be in the continuous row, so let me move it up, and best space 4. Same manner I'll get the data for nice and good also. So this is what the final outcome I want. But as of now, let me clean it up and let's keep this file as is for our uses. This is not going to be a simple split problem. First of all, we have to split the name and the rank into separate columns. Then we have to further split the rank into multiple rows, and then we have to combine these again back into one single column. So two operations going together, split and combine. Let's jump onto the Power BI desktop. I'm going to load this data again, but you can continue with the file where you have already loaded. So I'm going to use recent source, and from there I'm going to take pivottdata.xls. And in the pivottdata.xls, I have all these sheets which I have showcased you in the past. From here, we would like to take the combined split sheet which has the desired data and directly go to transform data. So we will reach Power Query. As our data is complete text data, it might not detect the first row as header. So we have to manually go and use first row as header from the menu. First step is to split the column by space into two columns. For that we need the operation split column by delimiter. So split column is available here. I'm going to click on that, and in that we have many options. I'm going to use by delimiter option. Let me click on that. It will open a pop-up. In the select delimiter, it has correctly detected the space as the delimiter, otherwise we can change it. We have to go to the advanced option, and inside the advanced option we'll choose column and we'll keep the value 2 which it has detected correctly. Now we can click on OK to complete this operation. So we got now two columns, but when we look at the second column, we found that the text which we are expecting is not correct. It is not comma separated value, and the reason for that is the auto conversion. You can see the data type is 1, 2, 3. There is a step added change type 2 which is converting it into the numbers. Previous step has the comma separated value, so we need to delete this step. Once we delete, we'll reach to the last step where we see the correct comma separated value. Whenever you do Power Query operations, sometimes the change type step is automatically added. In such cases, you can delete such a step. Whenever you are working on Power Query, if something goes wrong, please check it step by step by looking at what is happening on each of the step. We need to split the second column into the rows, so again we are going to use the split column option. So let's select this column and use the split column by delimiter, and once we get the pop-up, we can see that it has correctly detected its comma separated, and in the advanced we need to use rows, not columns for this time. Let's click on OK to complete the operation. As you can observe that now we have the values required, but they are not in one column, they are in two columns. We are getting best in one column, one in second column, best and two in two different columns. But what we need to do is we need to combine them into one single column. So we need to perform another operation for that. Now we need an option merge column. Merge column is available under the transform tab. We were on the home tab. That option is not available in the home tab. That is available under the transform tab. In case of merge columns, the order of selection is really important. So first I'm going to select the first column and then I'm going to select the second column. If you change the order, you may get a different result. So let's select the first column, click and control and select the second column. From transform tab, let's choose merge columns. A pop-up will open and here we'll choose separator as space and we will give a new column name which is name rank and let's click on OK. So now we got the desired outcome. The desired outcome contains best space 1, best space 2, best space 4 and so on. So this is what we wanted, and as you can see we have used the standard Power Query menu options only to achieve this. Power Query can solve many complex problems using these menu options or the Power Query functions. The only thing is you need to learn Power Query in details to achieve that. My advice would be to also look at all the functions which we have discussed in beginner tutorial series to make sure that you are able to take full advantage of Power Query. In this video, we are going to discuss subcategory index or subcategory rank. We call nested rank or nested index. There is a video from Kerbal on that. That is the inspiration for this video. We are going to use the technique shown there to get the subcategory index and subcategory rank. The function required for subcategory index and subcategory rank, the rank and the index function I have explained you already in the beginner tutorial series. You can watch it there. I will give you a brief overview of those functions here also. Let me show you the two functions I am planning to use today. The first one is table.add_rank column and the second one is table.add_index column. Both of them we have already discussed inside the beginner tutorial series. Now the challenge which we are going to get here is these function works at table level. So I cannot give a kind of a partition to give me subcategory rank. And that is what we have to learn. How can we make them to work for a particular portion of the table or partition of the table or category or subcategory. For example, let's say my table has brand. I want everything to rank inside a brand from 1 to any. For subcategory index and rank, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the Pivot Data XLS which is available on my GitHub. And that is the same file we have already loaded in end-to-end 14 PBIX. So we can continue to use that particular file. Those of you who are directly jumping onto this part of the video, you have to go to my GitHub account, github.com/amitchandakpbi/powerbi. You have to go down, you will find a file pivotdata.xls. Click on that. One thing is you can download this and use it. Or the second thing is right click on the raw, don't take the URL from the top and copy link. And that is the link which you can use as web URL in your Power BI to load this data. In this case, I have tried out this operation on a little different file, but you can continue with the file you are already having, the pivotdata.xls file. Let's try this out on Power BI desktop. I'm onto the Power BI desktop now. Let me go to the Home tab, Transform Data and Transform Data. In Power Query, I already have multiple queries or tables, and one of the table I have is this Pivot Data. I have columns name, subject and marks, and here name can become that logical division inside which I can rank or index my subjects. So let's first try out to add the subcategory index by name. So for that we need to use the group by function first to group this data. So I click on name and I'll go to transform. Inside the transform I have option group by. Operation group by and its functionality I have already explained in this series and in this video. Also I have explained same thing in beginner tutorial series, and I'm going to click on that option group by. In the pop-up I will see name as group by. Also observe a new column name as count and the operation as count, which I'm going to change to all rows. That will disable the column option. Let's understand what we are trying here. We are trying to group this data by name and we want a column which contain all the rows. So the operation is all rows. And now I would like to click on OK to get this transformed table. If I do that, I see a column name and a column count with the table inside each row. If I click on the empty space, I can see what data each table contains. Table has name, subject and marks for each name. The next step is to add column from add column custom column. So let me first of all name this column as index. The function which I am going to use for this is table.addIndex. Table.addIndex can take table, index column name, start position, increment and the data type to give us the index. Argument would be count, which is a table, comma second argument is the name of the column which I wanted to give, which is subindex, comma. Now it is not showing because table is doubled out here, so I'm going to remove the table. And now it will suggest me after the comma. So I want to give the start position which is 1, increment which is 1, and it is asking for a data type as the last argument, which I can give index64.type. So we have to return a type and here I am returning index64, close parenthesis and click on OK. And I'll try to look into the data of each table. Now I can see sub index inside it. And now what I can do is I can delete this count column, it is no more required, and then I can expand this index column and I can uncheck the name because I no more need that, and let's click on OK. Once we expand that, you can observe that the indexes are inside the name and after that they are repeating inside the second name, and that is what we wanted to achieve. Index is typically based on the order of loading. It is not based on the marks or the subject or anything else, and that is where we need the rank column to define order based on a column. To showcase you subcategory rank, we are going to do a little complex operation, and I'm going to showcase you how can you add another table inside the same code. So first let's delete these steps and reach till the step we have added column where we have the table. Let's remove the steps and reach to the table. And we are going to open that step again by click on the setting icon. I will now showcase you how to do complex operation in a column. For that, first of all, let's move this table down and write down let. And after that, we need to create variables for the table. So let me put this table inside one variable and put comma after that. In next line, I'm going to put another table name, and here I'm going to do the operation table.addRank column. So tab 1 has index, and in tab 2 I am adding rank to the same tab 1 which is having index. Let's remove the duplicate table, and now understand the syntax of this one. So we require a table which we are getting from the last step. The next one is the column name which we are going to give the rank column name, and the third argument is the one by which we are going to decide how we are going to rank. And to do that, I will go back to the documentation and bring in what all values I need to give. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to change it once we reach back to our code. So let's take this and put it inside our code onto the Power Query. We need to provide our own column name in place of revenue, which is the rank column, and the column which we plan to use here is the marks. That is what is available in our data. In the double quote, then the order is fine. I can keep order dot descending. Next thing we need to define is the rank kind, and we are going to keep the values what we have got from the code. So rank kind is equal to rank kind dot competition. We are going to keep it same what we got from the documentation as of now. Now we need to return it because we have used let, so we need to use in, and we need to use in small, and after that we need to return the underscore tab 2. Click on OK to complete this custom column. Now if you observe the table, you can see the index as well as rank. Instead of adding the multiple steps, what we have done within the same custom column, we added both of them. Now you can see rank is based on the marks while index is based on the order we loaded the data. And when you do the rank column, it does change the sort order of the table. So that is why first you should do the index operation and then you should use the rank operation in case you need both of them together. In the rank, we have few more options which we can explore. So let's go back to the formula. And here in the rank kind, I can choose different options: competition, dance, ordinal, and type. So those of you who have already worked on the rank knows that the dance rank is little difference. In case of the dance rank, we get the next rank whether the rank repeats or not. So if you look below here, you have a rank which is 1, 2, and then we have the 2 again, and then we have 4. So basically it is kind of a skip rank. But what we want is dance rank. It means 1, 2 and 3. So even if there is a skip, we should be able to get the next rank, and that is what happens in case of dance rank. So let's make it dance rank and try it out. So now let's look at the data. So we have the different kind of rank. Let's look at some different row. In this row itself, if you see, 1 is repeating, but we still have 2 after that. Then in this one also we have 1, 2, 2, but we have next rank is 3. So basically, even if the rank is repeated, the next continuous rank is coming. The count column one we created using the group by is no more needed. We can delete it. Now let's expand the data by using the expand icon on the right top. We can remove the name and click on OK. And now we are getting rank as well as index inside our table, the subcategory rank and the subcategory index. So here we have used the table operations, and table operations is something we have not discussed in this video or series a lot. But you can go ahead and watch the beginner tutorial series to understand in depth how to use table operations. And if you want to execute those operations at the grouping level or subcategory level, you can utilize the trick I have shown you in this video.
Thank you for taking out time to watch this video. I'm hopeful by now you have seen how powerful and versatile Power Query is. From transforming messy data to creating clean, usable datasets effortlessly. Whether you are working in Power BI Desktop or leveraging Dataflow Gen 2 in Microsoft Fabric, the skill you have gained here are your ticket to build scalable enterprise-grade solutions. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more amazing content onto Power BI, Microsoft Fabric and beyond. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing and keep transforming data into insights. See you in the next video. Thank you.
Keep watching, keep asking questions in comments, subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so that you can get notification for new videos. Thank you.